retorts.
Hello and welcome to Book Retorts. I'm Sam.
I'm Danielle.
And this is the podcast about sharing your weird media finds with your friends who don't know what you're talking about.
And what are we talking about today, Sam?
Danielle, I'm so glad you asked, as if you weren't obliged to every time we do this.
That is the premise, but I do want to know.
So today, Danielle, I brought for you a franchise that I did not know existed until quite recently.
Okay.
And it started with the 2004 made-for-TV movie, The Librarian, The Quest for the Spear.
Okay. I seen part of this a very long time ago. I do not remember any of it. But I know it had Noah Wyle in it. Is that correct?
Noah Wyle, yeah. It has him. He is a star.
That's why I remember it, because I was a big ER fan at the time, and I loved him, and definitely saw this in passing kind of thing, and no, do not remember it, so carry on. But full disclosure, big fan of Noah Wyle at the time.
Oh, he's charming as heck in this movie, too.
Yeah, it's his peak, for sure.
Couple of things about this movie. I want to share some facts just before we get into it. It was made for TNT originally in 2004. The first of the Librarian movies came out. It was called Librarian: The Quest for the Spear.
You really didn't know about this? I'm sorry.
Why would I know about this?
I don't know. I mean, it was a really well-known franchise when it came out.
In 2004, I didn't watch ER. Why would I know about this, Daniel?
Because it was, I don't know, it was on TV. You didn't have to watch ER to know that the Librarian... Anyway, I'm glad you finally discovered this treasure.
If we're judging each other on what we don't know about certain media, this is going to get real vicious real quick.
It's true. All right, carry on. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Thank you, Danielle. I don't appreciate your shade.
It just seemed like it was everywhere for a while. I was just impressed that you hadn't somehow come across it.
Yeah, well, but here we are. I did come across it just a few years late. So there were 3 TV movies made in total. The latter 2 were directed by the amazing Jonathan Frakes.
Ooh.
Commander Riker, of course.
That's a 6 Degrees thing.
I know. I'm very excited to watch those ones. This one was not directed by him, unfortunately, but, we'll let that slide. There was also a TV series that ran for 4 seasons.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, called The Librarian. See, Danielle, and everyone knows everything about everything. And a couple of books and a couple of comics. So really a sprawling franchise that I am still kind of in awe managed to get that big.
See, I knew it was a really big franchise. That's why I was surprised you hadn't seen it.
Yeah, well, you know what? Different circles, I guess, Danielle. I was never into the whole ER made-for-TV movie Lifetime original scene.
I wouldn't say that I am, other than ER, but apparently I am.
More than I am, Danielle, is all I gotta say. All right, so I'm going to send you a description that I copied verbatim from IMDb, so you know it can be great. And it has just the least amount of care I've ever seen put into a description. There are just all kinds of typos, and it makes very little sense, so I'm delighted to share this with you.
Yay! Says, a bookworm becomes the librarian. Same night, a magical spear gets stolen, and he's off to get some real-life experience around the globe on his quest for the spear, starting with being thrown off a plane over Amazonas by his cute helper.
Right, okay. That made as much sense as I think it needed to.
I like that they make a reference to the librarian like it makes sense. A bookworm becomes the librarian. You're like, okay.
Full stop. What does that mean? Figure it out, dum-dum. Watch the movie. Yeah, it's great. It tells you absolutely nothing, but somehow everything about the quality of this movie.
Yeah, I'm feeling it.
Which is to say, it is made for TV quality, but it feels like they put a lot of fun and effort into it, but not like too much effort.
Yeah, no, I really want to watch this. And maybe ER.
All right, well, that's a different podcast, Daniel, I'm sure. So, The Librarian opens with credits in the papyrus font because, of course.
Of course.
We're in an Egyptian tomb, presumably one of the Great Pyramids. A woman in glasses lamenting that she can't find the translation for any of these hieroglyphs. A man explains that she's focusing on the wrong dynasty, and he's sort of leading this class, it looks like, through the pyramid. So my first thought is, who got this random joker into the Great Pyramids of Giza to wander around and paw at things with his class? Because that does not seem like how that would work.
Maybe he paid off the Egyptian government.
Well, this movie is more clever than I gave it credit for. Well, first he claims that if even one stone was so much as an inch out of alignment, the whole pyramid would collapse. And I don't think that's true. I don't know that's how pyramids work. I don't know that's how construction works. I don't think that's how inches work. Because if only one inch was needed to take the whole pyramid down, I'm surprised they lasted this long.
It's true.
Yeah, no, that's nonsense. But it will become a pivotal plot point later, so remember it.
Okay.
He then does a sort of standard Eurocentric racist thing about, like, how do these primitives unlock the mystery of trigonometry, calculus, and engineering centuries ahead of their time? I'm like, look, dude, just because ancient peoples who weren't Europeans figured these things out doesn't mean that they were, like, aliens helping them or something. Some people just did things better than Europeans did. I'm sorry, get over yourself.
You don't know that they're not aliens, Sam.
In this movie, I do.
That's true.
But also, that is a unfortunate and Eurocentric viewpoint that I do not appreciate.
It is. I agree.
He answers this question, though. He says, they reached past themselves and touched the divine. So I guess he's giving them some credit. I don't know. So he walks out of the pyramid, and then a janitor comes up and is like, hey, where's the vomit? And psych, it's actually just a mock-up of the pyramid. That's a 1/20th scale mock-up built in a museum.
Oh, they got you good.
They got me good. I fell for that. I mean, again, I couldn't tell the difference because of the CGI quality of this pyramid. I thought I could have been trying to do the real one, but here we are.
Is there a lot of CGI in this movie?
Oh, yeah.
Yay.
Is it good? No.
I didn't assume it would be.
A lot of green screen, too. So he's actually a student, not the professor, and this class is assembling this pyramid in the museum. Like, they're building it, like hoisting up the giant capstone, like a golden capstone on ropes why are the students building the pyramid in the museum? Like, don't they have professionals to do that?
Maybe it's part of a project for the school.
I don't know. It just seems a little weird. But that's not the point. The point is the real professor, who looks like a classic nerd, he gives a little speech about they finally did it. They built the fake pyramid. Well done. No one said we could build a 1/20th scale replica with the golden capstone, but we did. Go us.
Why couldn't they do it?
I think because, they use actual stones from the pyramid, it sounds like. So I'm not sure how they got their hands on those.
Like, wait a second.
Yeah. So that seems to me like they maybe did a British Museum style, just stealing everything they could from Egypt.
That seems very questionable.
It is very questionable. So the student, whose name is Flynn, he goes up to the professor after the speech, and the professor's like, hey, Flynn, you're off the pyramid project. Flynn's like, I'm your best student. How can you do that to me? He's like, you are my best student, but you're everybody's best students. You already got 4 Egyptology degrees. I'm like, wait, what?
Why do you keep getting the same degree over and over? Is it 4 different Egyptology degrees?
And he seems to imply they're focused on different dynasties, but I don't know. But the professor's like, you don't need any more degrees. In fact, you have 22 degrees in total so far.
Is he rich?
No.
Is he scholarshiped? How does he pay for that?
I mean, he seems well enough off, I guess. But my question is, Melissa, how does he pay for that? How does he have time for that? 22 degrees? And if he has 4 degrees in focusing in different areas of Egyptology, that implies they're advanced degrees, right?
I'd assume.
So 22 degrees. Even if he got a degree a year, he'd have to be like 40, and he is not 40.
Maybe he's doing multiple degrees a year. Maybe he just learns information very, very quickly.
I suppose, but it still seems, it had me feeling very incredulous about that. Like, they just pulled a number out of their butts.
Like Doogie Howser.
Doogie Howser even only has 1 medical degree. He doesn't have 17 medical degrees.
Sure, but he didn't want 17 medical degrees. I bet Doogie Howser could have gotten 17 medical degrees.
Well, maybe Doogie Howser is the librarian in a different universe.
I'd watch that.
Anyway, the professor is like, you don't have a life. You need to go out. You need to go dancing. You need to find a job. You got to stop being a student. You're giving your degree early. And Flynn's like, what do you mean? It's the middle of semester. If you get my degree now, it'll be 6 months before I can re-enroll. And the professor's like, yeah, exactly. And I'll get out. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. Is it really the professor or the administration's job to tell a student that they're done? Like, hey, you've been a student too long. You need to go find a job. Like, as long as he's a student in good standing, why are they telling him what to do with his life?
Yeah, I don't think legally they could.
I don't know about legally. It just seems like that's more of a parent thing than the school professor / administration who's like, well, you've completed a bunch of degrees and you're paying all your bills. Everything's fine. But you know what? We just feel like you've been a student for too long. That's not your call to make school.
Don't you, as a whole, don't most universities just want the money?
Honestly, yes. So someone who has been in academia, yes.
So I don't see why they'd care if somebody who's sticking around that's a lot of money for 22 degrees.
I mean, maybe they're all public schools, so it's not a lot of money. But either way, it still is not their place to tell him how he can and can't stop his learning.
Yeah, that's weird.
So anyway, that was weird. The professor just kicks him out, get out. And as Flynn is leaving, we get a brief shot of a weird dude who is Bob Newhart.
Okay.
watching Flynn from an upper level of the museum as Flynn sadly leaves and goes home.
Yeah, well, Bob Newhart is kind of weird.
So I'm going to be honest, we don't learn Bob Newhart's character name for like an hour, so I'm just going to call him Bob for the rest of the movie.
That works for me. You know that I'm always down for made-up names.
Well, Bob Newhart is not his made-up name. It's
No,
actual his name.
Made-up name in the actual show.
His actual name in the show is, I think, Judson, which is pretty awesome.
It was like a House of Wax, where all I did was call all the characters by their actor names.
Right, well, because, again, they never say the name Judson until, like, an hour or so into an hour and 40-minute movie.
Yeah, that was not the problem with House of Wax. It's just more fun
just
to say Chad Michael Murray and Jared Padalecki.
Fun words to say. So Flynn lives at home with his mom, played by Olympia Dukakis. Like, they got some good names for this movie. They did a good job with the casting.
They do, and Noah Wyle was, like I said, peak.
Yeah, peak Noah Wyle.
It was.
And she seems to be putting on a very happy face. She's like, "Oh, welcome home, my educated son. We love you," et cetera, et cetera. So she's very
educated son.
She says something about like the student or whatever. She just seems thrilled that he's a student, although honestly, she's probably not. Flynn is down in the dumps about not being in school. He laments how the books of great writers speak to him, and his mom is like, "Do they tell you to set fires? Don't listen to the books that they tell you to hurt small animals." So she seems to like not quite get it.
Why doesn't he go into a career in academia?
Look, Danielle, there are lots of solutions he could have had, but apparently he doesn't want any of them.
Okay, well, carry on.
I agree, though. If he had become like an assistant professor or something, problem solved.
Right, you could stay in school forever.
Anyway, there's a ring at the doorbell. Surprise! His mom invited over a girl for a surprise dinner date with Flynn.
Uh-oh, blind date.
Yep, trying to set him up. Flynn is not into it, and his mom says, like, "Don't do what you always do." What does he always do? We never find out.
Nothing good.
Probably not.
Does he talk about his 22 degrees? Because that would be really boring really fast.
As a matter of fact... So enter Deborah. She is not a dragon. Callback.
Aw, sad. We only like Deborah dragons around here.
Deborah the dragon, yeah.
Deborah the dragon.
Anyway, Deborah, who's not a dragon, seems a very nice woman. Apparently their moms are friends and are both trying to set them up. And Deborah laments about like how her pushy mom, like, she doesn't need to get us together. I'm happy. It's not like I sit around locked in my room all day. And then Flynn's like, And I'm like, wait a minute, that feels like an attack. I'm offended by the characterization of shut-ins because I am sometimes one. So, Deborah, you're on thin ice.
I am not a shut-in.
Like
25%.
I said, we all go through like little spurts of being a shut-in, especially these days.
That's certainly true. Yeah, the last 18 months don't count.
Fair. Still, I felt a little bit attacked. Anyway, Deborah reveals she's a social worker that works with convicted killers.
Is that going to come into play later?
No, it's just a joke.
What a weird thing to say and not have come into play.
No, Deborah will exit the scene very quickly here, and she'll never be heard of again. So...
What an odd choice.
So then Flynn shares his student, and Deborah's like, "You're still a student?" And he gets all defensive, like, "Look, I like to learn. Is that a crime?" And it just goes on and on about how, like, it's okay to be a student, it's okay to learn.
That's her reaction to somebody being a student at a slightly older age.
Yeah, at first I'm like, Deborah, wait a minute. There's nothing wrong with being a student in your 30s. A lot of people who go back to school or start school later or just...
Or doing, like, higher education.
Yeah.
That's a very odd, especially as a social worker. What an odd response.
She was very condescending.
I don't like that. That, Deborah.
Yeah. So here's what she says. She then goes, "Oh, I understand you're a student still, and you're in your 30s, and you live with your mother, and you're okay with that." And then Flynn's like, "Oh, when you put it that way, I gotta change my life."
Okay.
And I'm like, wait a minute. Deborah, you're wrong. A, 30s in school, not a big deal. Also, living with your mom, not a huge big deal these days, especially maybe back in 2004 or whatever, but not a huge deal.
Right.
And I'm still annoyed that he has 22 degrees and he's like bragging about that. There's like, I have 22 degrees. I'm like, how'd you do that? It's crazy. Sorry. I'm still not on board with that.
And I have willingly accepted it.
You did. What's the difference between you and me, Danielle?
Actually,
I want detail
it's a very
on how he meant to pull that off.
difference.
So Deborah says at that point, well, it's time for me to go before dinner. Just like, all right, we had a nice conversation for a few seconds. I did my part to advance the plot. Time to go. And leaves. And then Flynn's mom says to Flynn, "Look, Flynn, the things that are worth living can't be thought of here." And she taps his head, but must be felt here, and taps his heart.
Aww.
And I'm like, I'm not sure about that. Like, there are lots of things that you think about that make life worth living.
That's certainly true. But you do have to put a little bit of your heart into it.
Well, agree to disagree, Danielle. I just think it's very, I don't want to say cliche, but it's a platitude.
It's a simplistic idea.
Yeah. Cut to the next day. Flynn is on the floor of his room, going through classified ads, trying to find a job, and it's not going well.
How can it not go well? He has 22 degrees.
He's qualified for literally everything, but apparently he just like crossing out job listing after job listing. He finally sits up and like leans back into his bookshelf and hits it with frustration, and a bunch of books like rain out on him.
Is that how that works?
If they're all precariously placed in there haphazardly, I suppose.
I guess. Okay.
There's also a letter that falls out, and there's some ominous music that plays as he opens the letter. Inside is a piece of paper, and it's blank at first, but there's this golden glow around the edge of it. And then words appear on the paper. They're like being burned in by golden light.
Is it triggered by the air?
No, it's like magic, Danielle. It's magic.
Okay.
It's like a Hogwarts letter or something.
Right, magic letter. Got it.
And a woman's voice says, "You have been selected to interview for a prestigious position with the Metropolitan Public Library." The end. And I have questions about this letter, Danielle. So many questions.
Really? Shocking.
I mean, I can buy the magic. That's fine. My question is, did whoever hide it in his bookshelf, did they do it recently, hoping he would stumble across it randomly? Or did they like shove it in there years ago and figure, he'll find it eventually?
Maybe it's one of those magic pieces where it's like, it'll happen when it's supposed to happen.
I feel like they should have left it on his like table or something. Would have been better. But, what am I? I'm not a magic library person, so who knows?
That's why you're not in charge of the magic library, Sam.
Well, there are many reasons for that, Danielle. We'll get to that. Flynn is, of course, intrigued, and he heads straight to the library. So Flynn goes into the library and into this large spiral staircase that's lined with people who all have identical papers. There looks to be maybe a couple hundred people there, and they're all lined up on the spiral staircase, which seems like an inefficient way to schedule your interviews. Just say, hey, everyone, come down as a mob. We'll just put you in a big line. Like, there's no times or anything, it seems.
Yeah, that seems weird.
For librarians, they're very inefficient. And that same woman's voice who read the letter keeps yelling out, "Next!" as people keep coming in, and then people keep leaving the interview, like crying or angry, like, I've never been so insulted, and et cetera, et cetera. And once Flynn is at the top of the staircase, next is called, and he chickens out. He like turns around to leave, and the voice is like, "Hey, where do you think you're going? Get in here." So he goes into a large room with a single chair in the middle, and there's a woman behind the desk. And the woman is played by Jane Curtin, who you may recognize as Mary from Third Rock from the Sun.
Oh, okay.
She is sitting behind a desk, and she's facing the chair, and Flynn takes a seat, and the woman asks condescendingly, "What makes you think you could be the librarian?" And Flynn answers, "Well, I've read a lot of books." She is not amused.
Well, to be fair, he has no idea what he's interviewing for.
Well, you're exactly right. Like, this is all BS. She has not explained anything about what they're doing here, what the job is. So you're right. I don't blame Flynn at all for being confused. He then lists a bunch of qualifications, like he knows to do a decimal system, he knows how to set up an RSS feed, how to do a web search. So, important 2004 skills.
What a skill task,
I
master.
She is unimpressed. She's like, everyone knows how to do that. They're librarians. And then she repeats, "What makes you think you could be the librarian?" And then she's like, "Tell me something no one else who has walked into this room would know." And so finally, Flynn sighs. He gets up and walks toward her. And he pulls that Sherlock Holmes thing where he's like, "You have mononucleosis. Your marriage broke up 2 months ago. You broke your nose when you were 4. And you live with 3 cats." Like that whole like super analytical, like looks up and down and can like figure everything else out.
Magic.
Yeah, exactly. The interviewer is taken aback, and then he spouts about like, "Oh, I noticed your glands were swollen, blah, 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 blah. I saw some cat hair on you," that kind of BS. And just because he has 22 degrees doesn't mean he is super observant, but apparently he is too.
Well, yeah, he's the main character, Sam.
My favorite explanation he gives is for how he knows she divorced 2 months ago, because he's like, "The indentation on a ring finger takes approximately 3 months to go away, and yours is 2/3 gone."
How would you know that?
Yeah, right. Like from A, across the room. B, what? 3 months? And how can you tell when an indentation is 2/3 gone? Like, do you get like your calipers and measure the depth of the indentation? Also, it doesn't mean she divorced 2 months ago. Maybe she took her ring off for other reasons. Maybe she's getting it fitted or expanded or repaired. Like, you jump to a lot of conclusions, my dude.
Or she might not even be divorced. She just could be separated.
Right, exactly. So, shenanigans on that, especially on the ring thing, because that's nonsense. But the interviewer is very impressed. Her actual name is Charlene, which we never learn in the entire movie. I looked it up, so I'm going to call her Charlene, because otherwise she's just the interview lady, and that's cumbersome.
Maybe.
So she was very impressed, and then a male voice echoes through the room, "What's more important than knowledge?" And Flynn, looks around, and then he responds with his mom's cute little phrase about how the most important thing in the world for loving life is up here, not in there, or whatever. I forgot the actual phrases, but, the whole...
So, using your heart?
Yeah, use your heart, not your head kind of thing.
Oh, I would have gone with pie.
Yeah, right? Pie's delicious. Or do you mean the number?
Nope, pumpkin pie. I know it's not your favorite, but delicious.
Your call, Danielle. Your pie job. Who cares? And so the male voice is like, "You've got the job. Tell other candidates to go home." I'm like, all right, well, good for him. And the woman's like, "Okay, you're going to have a 6-month trial period to see if you work out. If you're so much as a minute late, I dock your pay. If you break anything, I dock your pay." I'm like, is this really the right time to be doing this?
Well, it doesn't seem like a usual interview process, so why not?
Right, sure. And then Flynn's like, "Well, what is the job? What's going on here?" And then some chimes sound, and Bob Newhart magically appears, with some golden sparkles from behind a wall or through a wall or something, just appears in the room.
We love a good Bob Newhart appearance.
He magic just went in the room, and that'll never happen again. So that's great.
That's unfortunate. They should have really stuck with that every time he appeared.
He does some weird appearance stuff that's pretty good in this movie, but unfortunately, a lot of things are just they set this up and they never come back to it.
Sad. We do like those movies.
Yeah, we do. They're very weird to have all this effort put into making a point about something and then utterly fail to capitalize on that point.
So he appears, what happens?
And he explains the job he has will be the last job he'll ever need. His life will never be the same after taking it. He's about to start a big adventure. And Flynn's just like, okay, sure. So Bobby Judson takes Flynn past some armed guards, and he explains this is the most secure place in the world. And he then goes up to a bookcase, and he quotes Midsummer's Night Dream, the ending soliloquy from Puck. And Flynn completes the quote, and then Bob gestures at the bookcase, and Flynn looks and says, Midsummer Night's Dream, and pulls the book, and the hidden door opens. The bookcase swings open like every bookcase hidden trapdoor thing ever.
So out of curiosity, since this is the most secure place in the world, does it definitely get broken into during this movie?
Oh, almost immediately.
Excellent.
The same thought, Danielle.
You can't say that and then assume nothing's going to happen.
But also, my favorite thing is their super secure method is to use the old bookcase trick and just hope nobody wants a copy of Midsummer Night's Dream.
Exactly. Just pull all the books until it opens.
Or if anyone's like, I want to read some Shakespeare, one of his most popular plays. What's this?
It's not even Cymbeline or something. It's
Right, it's not something obscure that no one would ever want to read. It's the one of the most famous and popular of his plays. And that whole song and dance they did about let me start this quote, and you can finish the quote, and I gesture the bookshelf, and you gotta pull the right book. You can just tell him, hey, pull that book over there, or something. This whole backing about is unnecessary.
Testing him, Sam.
He's already got the job.
Well, it's a 6-month trial. It's an ongoing test.
Anyway, they go through some super secure doors that have the missile keys where each guard has to turn the key at the same time. And Bob's like, where do you think the military got the idea for that? And all right. Bob Newhart is the comic relief, and he's pretty funny, so it helps. Some of the jokes are better than others. So they get in the elevator and they go down, and they just sit in the elevator in silence for 30 or 40 seconds of screen time, which is actually a pretty good gag. I like that one. They're just sitting there awkwardly looking at each other. And at the bottom, the elevators make the Star Trek noises when they open for whatever reason.
The swooshy thing?
Yeah, the little chick kind of noise when they open. I don't know why, but they're just elevator doors.
Cool.
And so then Bob finally opens a door to a massive room, huge, giant, cavernous space. And the little chunk, chunk, chunk of lights coming on and revealing the space as it goes happens. And it's this massive room. It has all these reading tables and shelves of books and all these display cases with artifacts in them. So Bobby Newhart reveals that, this whole big room. And this movie is cribbing so hard from Raiders of the Lost Ark, that last scene, it's absolutely that they even have the exact same Ark prop or a copy of it from Raiders sitting there as the first thing they go up to.
Yeah, I absolutely remember the trailers for this movie, and my vague recollection of it definitely was a Raiders of the Lost Ark / Indiana Jones Librarian vibe.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. And Flynn's like, that's a really good replica of the Ark. And Bob's like, it's not a replica. Don't touch it. It'll electrocute you. Or as they used to say, smite. Flynn is bemused. He thinks this might be a prank. But Bob explains how Flynn is now the guardian of all these treasures, including the real Mona Lisa, which is there for some reason. I get mystical items like the Ark and everything else in the library you're about to see. But why is the Mona Lisa, which is just a painting, here?
I think it's probably just because it's a really famous thing that everybody would identify.
I get that, but it seems like, why are you wasting your time guarding just a regular painting when you have, like, the Ark of the Covenant sitting over there?
I don't know, Sam.
I mean, that's my
It's a very
point.
important painting.
Maybe it's magic. I don't know, but they have it.
I'd like the idea that the Mona Lisa is actually magic.
Well, as they're walking, Flynn is immediately distracted by Pandora's box, and he opens it and he sees a bunch of writhing horrors inside of it.
He opens Pandora's box.
Oh, absolutely.
This guy cannot be in charge of this library.
I know, right? He's nothing like, he's like, oh, maybe just go bring up the random. Like, to be fair, at this point, he doesn't think this is real. He's not taking it seriously.
I don't care.
Yeah. It's absolutely not okay. But luckily, Bobby comes back and closes the box before anything bad escapes, apparently.
Because it takes a few seconds. It's like, oh, wait, everybody, the box is open.
Guys, it's finally happening. Get I thought we practiced this, guys. We gotta be ready. This is why we do drills. Come on. Aw, door's closed. This is all right. We're redoubling our rehearsals. No more slacking.
I can only imagine that must be what's going on inside the box so they don't escape immediately.
That's crazy. They should have. It should have been over at that point. The whole premise was it opens immediately, and it was bad. Complacency is all my explanation. So now, after Flynn sees Pandora's box, he is on board. He's like, okay, this is impossible. How can this all be real? And Bobby's like, give me your cell phone. And so Flynn hands him his 2004 flip phone.
I was gonna say, it can't be anything better than a flip phone at this point.
Just a flip phone. That's a standard cheap-ass flip phone.
I had a lovely 2004 flip phone as well. I loved that flip phone. I liked snapping it shut when I was annoyed at somebody.
You were very passive-aggressive like that.
I am not passive-aggressive, everybody.
Anyway, Bobby, he takes the cell phone, is like, see this phone? You speak into it, and magically you can talk to somebody on the other side of the world. No wires. You don't have to look at them.
Magic.
20 years ago, this would have been impossible.
Do they have car phones then, or no? Was that a later development?
1984? I don't know.
Sorry, continue.
Point is, he's trying to make basically the Arthur C. Clarke argument that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Right.
But this isn't technology, it's literally magic items. So I'm not sure it quite fits. Like, oh, your cell phone, which is, engineered, is the exact same thing as a magic arc that will kill you if you touch it, or a box that contains all of the evil of the world. It's like, those don't seem like they are very much similar. That's not an explanation I buy. I'm sorry, Bob.
Bob's wrong.
He's like, no, this isn't technology. This is something different. He's like, we just don't understand the laws of the universe enough to know how these things work. I'm like, okay, that could be true, but they also are not, at all similar to technology. I'm sorry. I don't buy that.
Absolutely.
So Flynn's like, why'd you choose me for this job? Good question. And then Bob's like, hey, we scour the world, 100 countries. We go to all their educational institutions. We read all the papers. We read all the dissertations. We keep an eye on blogs even. That's how we find our interviewees, and we send out the interview request to them, and then things just sort of work themselves out from there. And then the right person just usually finds their way here. So
they read all 22 of his theses?
Thesi? If you assume they're all advanced degrees, then yes. And apparently people just it just works itself out then. They send out a bunch of invitations, and then the universe figures it out.
I mean, yes.
But also, yeah, real active job you're taking in protecting these secrets there, Bob.
It's because I looked at the line of 100 people standing on the staircase and we're like, oh wait, that's Noah Wiley. That's the guy we want.
Also, I'm going to put a little spoiler here because it's only going to be a spoiler in about 10 minutes of movie time. But they are very bad at picking librarians. Like the previous librarian they picked, they did not do a good job on that one. So I don't think this process is foolproof. It doesn't just work itself out.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So,
how would you feel if you got that job and then you found out the last person stole everything or something and you're like,
Yeah, foreshadowing, Danielle.
I think I could have written this made-for-TV movie.
I think most people could write this made-for-TV movie, Danielle. It's pretty by the numbers.
That's what makes it nice.
So the whole, it just works itself out. No, it doesn't. You should probably take a little more active interest in vetting your candidates, Bob.
That take over.
Judson.
They're supposed to control over this entire, everything in the entire world.
Yeah, exactly. And so then Flynn is all very excited, I have a job. I can't wait to tell my mom about this because cool. Which is when Excalibur, which was just around the corner, pulls itself out of the stone and then flies over to Flynn and holds itself against his neck in a threatening way. And I didn't know one of Excalibur's powers was magic flight and sentience.
Well, you just didn't read the books well enough, Sam.
That's true. I haven't been able to find a good copy of the Once and Future King. Bob explains how he's now in the Library Society. He must keep it secret.
Yeah, why did he think like, oh, I'm in charge of the Ark of the Covenant? I guess I'll go tell him to my mom. This is so exciting.
Also, I'm not entirely sure why this has to be kept secret. I mean, I get the whole idea about we have to keep it secret to protect the world because people want to abuse these things. But also, like, that's pretty arrogant to be like, we're the ones who get to decide what people know about and don't know about.
Yeah, well, that's true of every secret organization, Sam.
Yeah, they're all jerks, my point.
You're gonna have to accept it. I have a feeling to move on from this.
Well, I accept it, but I'm still, like, going on record that they're jerks.
You tell them. You should write to them. Dear Librarian.
Well, they're still working on more movies, apparently, so maybe we'll get some new ones.
There's more of them?
There are some rumors that are trying to make an actual theatrical release one, but it's stalled.
This is very exciting. We should marathon these.
Well, I assume it's stalled, and then we have to marathon all 4 seasons of the TV series.
I might do that.
Anyway, then Bob's like, Excalibur, stand down, give him some time. He'll get it. And then Excalibur sort of like reluctantly goes back to its stone. And I still don't understand why Excalibur has that ability.
Or personality, apparently.
Yeah. So a little while later, Flynn is sort of prancing about the library. He's clearly very excited to be there and see all the artifacts. And he finds a jetpack, which I don't know if that's mystical or not, but I don't know why that's here either. Like, there seems to be a real weird criteria for what needs to kind of like magical items that can destroy the universe or destroy the earth or hurt people or cause mass destruction. Sure. I get that about the Ark of the Covenant or Pandora's box. The Mona Lisa and a jetpack, I don't get why those have to be kept away from people. Like, it's a jetpack. I mean, maybe you're worried about, like, the Rocketeer when they're going to have flying Nazi soldiers or something.
I was going to say the Rocketeer. I love the Rocketeer.
It's a fun movie, absolutely.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. But I don't think, like, 2004, we're still worried about flying. Oh, I guess if we start worried about Nazis now in 2020, but that's not the point. The point is, I don't think the jetpack is going to make a difference in that regard. Like, keeping that a secret isn't helping anybody, I think.
Maybe it's just one of those, like, extra things that was in a closet somewhere.
This feels more like, do you remember the TV show Eureka?
Yes.
Feels kind of like that, where it's supposed to be like, oh, everything here is, but that was more science, this is more mystical, but they still got a lot of that, like, mystical stuff. What was that other one, Warehouse 13, which was a similar concept?
I just brought that up to somebody the other day. Eureka I have not actually thought about probably since the last episode I watched years ago.
Yeah, it got a little weird.
But Warehouse 13 I think about because Joshua Jackson was in it.
Okay, well, it's about the actors for you if they're hunks.
I am who I am, Sam.
Anyway, my point is it feels very much like they're trying to be all of those things, and it's kind of like a grab bag. We'll take that and put it in the library. We'll take that and put it in the library. Ooh, I like that. Let's put that in the library, too.
I bet they didn't expect anybody to think this hard about the stuff that was in the library.
Well, they haven't met me yet, Danielle. Anyway, he activates this jetpack, and it goes crashing around the library. He's chasing after it, and eventually it crashes, and he finally gets a hold of it, and he's, next to a unicorn. And then he sees...
An alive unicorn?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a live unicorn.
Feeding the alive unicorn?
Questions? Again, yeah, I told you. What they have in this library warehouse is insane.
I'm just worried about the live thing in the unalive building.
Why is there a unicorn? Why is a unicorn have to be kept in a pen? That seems rather cruel. But, here we are. They have to keep that next to the Holy Grail, which Flynn is distressed because apparently when he crashed, he smashed the Holy Grail to pieces.
Oh, well, he's doing a really good job a bang-up job for his first day.
I know. I was really impressed. He's freaking out about crashing into the Holy Grail and destroying it because, yeah. And Bob comes out and is like, you think just a little smashy smash can destroy a legend? And then some really bad CG happens and the Grail reassembles itself, like melts back into itself. And it's like, oh, it's fine.
No, thank goodness. I was really worried there for a minute.
So if all these objects are like magically able to reassemble themselves, I guess they need less protecting than I thought. Like, what is his job? All right, it doesn't matter.
Does a unicorn reassemble itself?
Great question, Danielle. And why is that poor animal kept in a dark underground room with no access to sunlight or fresh air or grass?
Yeah, I feel really strongly that the unicorn should not be in there.
Like I told you, Danielle, I feel strongly about the unicorn, Mona Lisa, and the jetpack. Those, no. At least those things. There's probably more there that's not okay.
And is it the only unicorn? It's like the last of its kind unicorn?
It's
the very last
unicorn. It's a
unicorn?
Peter S. Beagle book, Last Unicorn. That's exactly right, Danielle.
Oh dear. What a sad life for the end of the unicorn species.
I don't know if there are more unicorns in there, Danielle. They only show the one, so.
I would hope that they would keep the unicorns together.
Maybe they fight. Maybe they don't get along. Maybe they had an acrimonious divorce.
Perhaps. We'll never know. Because
we'll
this
never
movie
know.
probably doesn't get into unicorns.
Nope. It's the last you'll ever see of it.
Maybe it's in the sequels.
I really hope so. Anyway, at the end of the day, Flynn goes home. His mom's like, you have a job. She's like hanging a poster up on the wall and everything, which is cute. And he's like, yes, Mom, I'm a librarian. She's like, you've had 16 years of college and you're a librarian? And so I'm like, okay, so he got 22 degrees in 16 years. Crazy. I'm still on that. But she's apparently unimpressed that he's a librarian. I'm like, why? A, it's a job. B, it's like the perfect job for someone with like an encyclopedic knowledge to be in a librarian or a reference librarian, right?
That's true.
So she's being unreasonable.
And there are a lot of like high-end librarian jobs
yes,
too.
Exactly. So
seems odd.
Yeah, no. But she eventually puts on a happy face to try to be happy for
That's
Flynn.
That's why she liked Deborah. They're two peas in a pod.
Yeah. Maybe she and Deborah should hang out.
Deborah should be your daughter.
Yeah. Oh. So we cut back to the library. Bob is at his desk when he hears a noise. So he gets up to investigate, and he finds the guards dead on the floor. And then he's knocked out by a ninja.
Ah.
Yeah.
A book ninja? A librarian ninja?
Who knows?
Is it a girl?
There is a girl, but I don't know if this is her.
Okay.
It might be. It has a mask on. I don't know. There are a couple of them. And the mask comes off almost immediately later. We never see a masked person again. So I don't know what the point is of the mask. We then cut to a brooding man looking out a high-rise window. There's a snake tattoo on his forearm.
Oh, he must be evil. Is he evil?
Yeah, of course he's evil. A woman walks in holding a golden staff and says, everything went exactly as you said. There's also a bald man with her who asks what they stole. And the other guy says, the realization of a 5,000-year-old dream.
Okay. I thought this was impenetrable. How did they get through?
Pretty easily, actually.
Depressing.
We'll get to that. So we cut to the next morning. Flynn is running to work and he runs into the interview lady, Charlene. And they enter the library and are distressed to see the inner security doors are left open. They then find Bobby on the floor, alive and just coming around. And they see that the vault was broken into. When Bob fully recovers, he quickly goes to security tapes and brings up security footage because, good, they finally have those. And they see a coordinated crew who, quote-unquote, knew about the failsafe and could only take one item. What failsafe? Why could they only take one item? Don't ask questions, Danielle.
So they just somehow managed to get in there even though nobody's supposed to know about this place to begin with.
Well, spoiler, and it's not much of a spoiler because they basically tell you that, and in the subtitles they told you this, but the guy, the brooding man, is the previous librarian.
Okay. He had to have been, otherwise how would he ever know that it was there?
Exactly, so good job on the vetting process. It's not a spoiler because it's obvious it's him, because they show a portrait of him like, oh, there's the previous librarian. And then you see him like, oh, that's him. Anyway, they're looking at this crew, and none of them are wearing masks anymore, so I don't know who the ninja was. But it's the girl, the bald guy, and a bunch of other hench people.
Is the girl going to be a love interest?
Man, I'll get to that. It's kind of my favorite part of the movie.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it.
And so apparently the only item they took was the quote-unquote Spear of Destiny. And whoever controls the spear controls the fate of the world. They would become the greatest conqueror. So like Alexander the Great had it, and Genghis Khan, all that kind of stuff.
This seems a bad thing. Why do these things exist?
Well, this is hilarious. I love this. So it wasn't the entire spear that was stolen. It was just a fragment of it, as Bob explains, because you can never destroy the spear because I guess it's like the Holy Grail or something. I don't know. So it was broken up into 3 pieces and hidden in 3 secret places around the world, one of them being the library, because that's how everything goes for every one of these things.
Well, how else do you get rid of something that you can't get rid of?
I mean, I don't know, but apparently even one piece is dangerous because Adolf Hitler only had one piece of the spear, and look what he did. I'm like,
I was wondering how Hitler is going to play into that.
And so again, it's kind of like, I don't know if we mentioned this during the Ready Player 2 stuff, how they always like, they have to mention 2 old things and then 1 new one to make it relevant to the people. Anyway, yes, of course Hitler played into it because it's that kind of movie. So he's like, imagine if someone got all of them. That's when Charlene gasps at something she sees at the security tape, and we see that on the form of one of the people is a snake tattoo. And Bob's like, oh, it's the Serpent Brotherhood, a splinter librarian group that wanted to use the artifacts to rule. So there was an internal war, and they're the ones who started the fire at the Alexandria Library and destroyed it. And I'm just like, what? A splinter librarian group? This is crazy. I love it.
So there's the good librarians and theoretically the bad librarians. And at one point they were all librarians together.
Yes.
And then one group decided they should use, like, they're in charge of ruling. That's why they're in charge of all these, charge of all these items. And the other group was like, no, we're just supposed to protect these items so people can't abuse them.
Yes.
And they split up into two different factions.
Yes.
But somehow the bad, like, quote unquote, bad librarians were pushed out.
Yes, they lost whatever internal conflict there was.
Crazy.
They say an internal war. And again, how did they hire for the librarian role the previous librarian if he was a member of the Serpent Brotherhood? Like,
was he to begin with, or is his backstory that he originally was like a quote unquote good librarian, but then learned about the Serpentine whatever librarians and then ended up becoming, like, going to the dark side?
I was about to suggest that, Danielle, because we do not learn the answer to that question. We do not know how he became evil.
I bet he was good to begin with and became evil.
Then he had a character flaw. They should still not have hired him.
No, I wasn't arguing with that point. I was just saying that originally maybe he had a pure heart.
Maybe they just check people for tattoos before hiring them. Just check them with a snake tattoo. Just a thought. Anyway.
Maybe he didn't. I'm saying, what if he didn't have it? What if they hired him and then he turned to that side
he's like
and got
the leader
tattoo
of the group at this point, so I don't know.
It's probably been a few years, Sam.
It's been 2 years.
Okay, well, he's had time to raise out the ranks. Maybe he's really, like, knife happy and murdered all the other ones.
Maybe it's been less than 2 years. I don't know how long it's been because they just hired the new librarian, so it couldn't have been that long since the old one was gone.
Well, apparently the librarians are super quick-witted and smart and crazy and gung-ho, so maybe he just made it up the chain of command very quickly, Sam.
Okay, I will double check on that. But
all right, in my headcanon, this is what happened.
Great. Glad that's for you. Moving on. So Flynn's like, I should call the police. And then he's mocked because, obviously, so yes. Good for him. Like, clearly he is a genius. So Bob tells him that only Flynn can retrieve the spear piece. And Flynn's like, what? I'm not like an adventurer in charge. I've never even left the city, never been on a plane or anything. But he is then eventually convinced, and he's given a book with clues on where the other spear parts are. And it's in a secret language. You'll have to learn that whole new secret language on the plane flight to the Amazon, because that's where the second spear piece is. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Why are they going to retrieve the second spear piece? I thought the whole point was to keep the spear pieces separate. Why are you not...
Protect it?
To protect, well, but like, if the only way to find the second spear piece is with the secret book that they still have, it's not any immediate danger.
What if they think the other guy has that knowledge because he's already a librarian there?
He doesn't, because no one else will be able to read that book. It's in a secret, like, it's called the bird language or whatever, the language of the birds. It's like an ancient language that was before the Tower of Babel or whatever. No one else speaks it.
I don't know, Sam. I can't help you.
So I'm going to make a point of this because this whole quest is dumb, because instead of going after the spear piece they know was stolen, they send Flynn to go retrieve the other spear pieces, which of course means that the other people are going to be able to get them from Flynn. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
So if he had just either done nothing or gone after the original spear piece that was stolen, this would have been a much better operation. Like, you don't, like, steal the thing back. Don't try to get other pieces that make them easier to retrieve if they're already in super secret hiding places nobody knows about. It's dumb. It's a dumb quest, Danielle.
It is. I do not disagree with that assessment.
So we cut to Flynn. He's boarding an airplane. And then as he sits down in his seat, Bob appears magically on the TV screen in the back of the seat in front of him to tell him to trust no one and to guard the book with his life. And I'm like, you probably could have told him that before he left. I mean, he didn't get this whole, like, magic TV appearance thing.
It looks cool. And also, he's definitely going to trust someone and not guard that book with his life.
Well, good. We'll get to that. So he's working on translating the book and learning the language of the bird people, or sorry, the language of the birds, when sexy jazz music plays and a sexy blonde woman walks in. She was apparently watching takeoff from the cockpit while the pilot or co-pilot is all like, drooling over her.
I'm pretty sure that's not how that works. Not even in 2004.
No, it isn't. But apparently she has magic sexy powers that let her do that. And she just clearly wraps men around her little finger. Flynn attempts to talk to her, but she's like, are you trying to talk to me? I am way out of your league, buddy.
Aw.
Don't talk to me.
You're just a librarian.
Like, nerd, like all that kind of stuff. So he's like, all right, fine. And as the plane starts its descent, a flight attendant then walks up to a man and is like, hey, are you the air marshal? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, good. And then she stabs him in the neck with a syringe and presumably kills him. I don't know what's in the syringe. And it's the ninja lady, the evil ninja lady from the robbery.
See? Told you she'd come back into play.
Why would I not think she didn't? So guess what? The bald man's also on the plane, and both approach Flynn. And then a bunch of people also stand up. Apparently, everyone on this plane is a snake cult person. They're all part of the Snaky Boys.
We have a lot of questions about this.
Yeah.
How did they know he was a librarian?
Good question. How did they know he was on the plane, right?
How do they know he's on the plane?
Yeah.
How do they know where he's going?
Yep.
How did they know anything about anything? Because prior to this, nobody had knowledge except for Bob.
Yeah. So again, if they had just stayed home in the library, none of this would have happened. Like, they could have just, even done done nothing, and this whole movie would not have happened. Like,
do they have somebody on the inside?
No.
Then I don't know how they know about Noah Wiley.
It's a real good question. His name was Flynn, please.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
I know.
I'm not going to remember that.
But apparently they managed to get an entire group onto this plane to attack Flynn.
And another question.
Yeah.
Was this plane not booked prior? Like,
great question,
not a single
Danielle.
person on the plane was just traveling for business or pleasure?
I think there are other sections of the plane that are regular people. They managed to get all the seats around Flynn in his, like, compartment to be...
Did they hack into the airline system and, like, reschedule
I don't know.
people
they
to
have a
different
librarian
seats?
on their team, too. Remember, Edward, the evil librarian, is on their team.
I don't know, Sam.
It's dumb. It's very dumb, Danielle. Like, I gotcha. Like I said, if the librarian Flynn had just stayed behind, they would have won. Like, the whole plan of the evil librarian is counting on the good librarian doing all the work of finding the pieces that should not be found, that they purposely separated and hid because they're too dangerous to bring together.
And now they're bringing them together.
They're absolutely going to bring them together because they're dumb.
So he's kidnapped and is going to be used to, like, go find the second piece?
Well... So they apprehend Flynn, and the woman with the syringe is going up to him, about to stab him with the syringe. And that's when the sexy blonde woman comes in and just starts kicking all the ass.
Yay.
And so she saves Flynn, and they run over to the emergency exit, and she pops the door open, which you can't do on a plane. It just doesn't physically work because of pressure. But she does.
She's super strong. She's magic, Sam.
She pushes the door open and she grabs a parachute and she shoves Flynn out first and then puts the parachute on and dives after him. And there's some pretty bad CG of parachutes, which is great. And the bad guys, they run up to the door, they look down, and the evil girl is like, wow, he pretended to be incompetent to lure us into a false sense of security. What an amazing librarian, because he dove without a parachute. How brave.
No, he's just extra stupid.
Yeah, but she doesn't get that, which is the joke. And so once the sexy blonde lady and Flynn land, Flynn's like, who are you? What are you doing here? And she's like, you just have to trust me. He's like, I can't trust you. Judson told me specifically not to trust anyone. She's like, I'm from the library. Judson sent me. You have to trust me. And he's like, Judson told me to trust no one. And she's like, well, that's convenient because my name is Nicole Nuna. No one. Yeah. Clever. And that's enough to convince Flynn to trust her. Like, she could be making up that name.
Yeah. That'd be hilarious, actually. That'd be a great way to try and get out of that.
It's basically the same trick Odysseus pulled on the Cyclops. So, but apparently she's the muscle. She guards librarian. That's her job. She is the librarian guardian. So she's the guardian's guardian? I don't know.
She gonna be the love interest?
Danielle, we'll get to that.
Just saying, it's got to get here eventually.
Of course. So Flynn climbs a tree. He's like looking around. He's like, oh, I know where we are. That mountain is this. And with that there, we have to go 27 miles that way to get to where the book tells us the second piece of the spear is.
So did everybody in the plane die because the door was thrown open?
I'm sure they're fine. Who knows?
That's not how that works either.
They probably made an emergency landing somewhere in the Amazon. I don't know. And Nicole's like, how do you know where we are? She's like, well, I've memorized the Earth. And she's like, okay, cool.
The entirety of the Earth.
He's like, memorize the Earth. Good, cool. Good job, Flynn.
I'd like to point out that, like, even if you memorize, like, topographic maps or whatever, like, Google Earth wasn't really a thing early in 2004. Even if you had done that, it would still look different when you're on the ground.
Yeah. And, like, you're in the middle of the jungle. You've never even left the city. You're like, oh, I recognize that mountain. I'm like, all right. She's like, well, I see a blue condor, and those only live within a 27-mile radius from the purest whatever of the Amazon. And that must mean that's mountain blank, blank, blank. And that means we're here. This latitude and longitude. Yeah, no, it's BS. Absolute BS. So meanwhile, the snake crew has found the parachute, the discarded parachute, as Nicole and Flynn have hiked off to the jungle.
I still really want to know how they managed to land that plane and then do a search and rescue.
Yeah, they found that parachute immediately. How do they know where they landed after being in a plane like 5,000 feet up? I don't know. But I want to take a moment here to admire the costume choices that these people are making, because they're in the Amazon. No one is dressed appropriately. Like, Flynn is wearing slacks and, like, a shirt, like a button-down shirt, which is not appropriate. The only person dressed appropriately is probably Nicole. But the evil lady, the evil girl, she is wearing, like, a black t-shirt, a studded leather belt, and, like, just black pants with zip pockets. And there's, like, a crop top shirt also, and fingerless gloves. It's amazing. It's like, who goes to the Amazon on like, a jungle trek in their punk rock outfit? It's great. It's so good.
All of those things seem wildly uncomfortable for Amazon trekking. To be fair, do they know they were going to end up in the Amazon forest?
Yeah, they're on a plane going to Brazil.
Yeah, but they're like landing in an airport. Maybe they thought they were going to have some time to change prior to being in the forest.
I mean, they could have changed before doing the excursion because they didn't jump out of the plane either. They stayed on the plane. They landed, presumably.
Yeah, I can't explain their side, but it makes sense that Noah is in normal clothes.
Yeah, no, okay, we'll let that one slide. But his name is Flynn, Danielle.
Flynn Noah.
No. Anyway.
I might remember that one.
Great. Anyway, we cut back to Flynn and Nicole. They're hiking through the jungle. They have some patter. They're sparring back and forth, doing that whole little, like, you don't like me because I'm a nerd. And she's, like, all being, like, tough and defensive. And he's trying to, like, engage in her. And he's collecting some plant samples, which never comes back up again. He just does it. It's not bad pattern. It's just kind of dull. But then Flynn asks her about the previous librarian. She's like, we're not talking about that. We're here to do this thing. Let's just focus on that.
Was she in a relationship with him?
Danielle, please. We'll get to that.
I'm just saying. It seems likely.
I told you, Danielle, this movie is a paint-by-numbers movie. Finally, they break through the jungle, and there's a rickety wooden bridge across a chasm next to a waterfall, because of course there is, and it's also very bad green screen, so that's fun. Flynn is super freaked out. He's like, this bridge won't support us. And Nicole distracts him, like mocking him, like, oh, what about your girlfriend? All that kind of stuff. And then she asks him, like, what are the clues to the spear? To keep him distracted while they cross the bridge. And Flynn says, I have them mostly figured out, but there's one that I don't get. And it goes, to get inside, you must know the time it takes a bird to become a bird again.
Okay.
And she's like, oh, okay, well, I'm sure you'll figure it out.
I'm not sure you're supposed to share all those secrets with people.
I thought that too. I'm like, that's not trusting no one. So halfway across, the bridge starts to collapse because, of course, it does, and they run to their side and just manage to make it. Yay! They continue to verbally spar, and then it's all very cutesy as Flynn, like, startles a bunch of butterflies, and is like, ooh, how pretty, and Nicole is, like, impressed by this for some reason when she was not impressed by anything he's done before.
Uh-huh.
And so that night, Flynn goes to take a dump, and as he's walking to do that, like, they make a whole deal about, do you have any toilet paper? So, yay, humor. Flynn sees a campfire in the distance. It's the Slither friends. They're tracking them.
Poorly, apparently.
Yeah. So Nicole, she douses the fire, and the campfire's like, we'll have to remain hidden because I don't think they've seen us yet. I'm like, we could just leave. But I guess we'll just hang out here without a campfire for the rest of the night. And in the sudden jungle chill, because jungles apparently get very cold at night because they're like deserts.
Sure.
Flynn pulls the old, we need to huddle together for warmth technique. And Nicole's like, fine, but only body heat. And like, all right, cool.
As opposed to what? Non-body heat?
I was like, he's obviously been like, he's been sexually harassing her the whole time. Okay?
Yes, I assumed.
And so then Flynn tries to learn again what happened to the previous librarian. Nicole's like, he died, leave it at that. And then Flynn pulls a Sherlock trick about like, you know, oh, you're this and that, and finally ends with, you wish more than anything that you could forget half what you've seen, but you can't. I'm like, how do you discern her intentions just by looking at her? Like, also, I noticed her pinky wobbled, so...
He seems pretty socially inept in some ways.
Yeah.
So how is he able to read people as well as he seems to suddenly be able to do?
Yeah, no, it's absolute BS, Danielle. But Nicole, I guess, is impressed enough by this that she breaks down and explains that Edward Wilde, the previous librarian, was charming, brilliant, and generous, and that she fell in love with him, which is a big no-no because obvious you can't be a bodyguard to someone you're in love with. That's going to be a conflict of interest.
Yeah, I mean, the bodyguard taught us that.
And because of that relationship, he's dead.
He's not dead, though. It's okay.
Well, she doesn't know that, for one. But
yeah,
also,
obviously.
how he died is hilarious.
Okay.
They were in the Antarctic, sleeping in an igloo he built, and when she woke up, he was gone. And she ran outside just in time to see the super snake team cutting off his head.
Which clearly didn't happen.
And they all just sort of left, I guess, after that. Like, she did nothing about it. He's dead. And they're like, okay, see you later. Time to bounce.
Well, what are you going to do about it?
I don't know. Kick their butts, take them in for questioning, figure out what their motives are.
All of them? It's just her.
Or why did the snake people then get her too?
I don't know the answer to that. Maybe probably because he wasn't really dead. He was joining them, so
she
why
doesn't
would he
know
go?
that. My point is, she should be very suspicious about this because it doesn't make any sense.
That's true. Well, she's a bodyguard. Nobody said she was a smart one.
She also says that about herself. That's true. Suddenly, a bunch of natives come out from the forest and surround them, taking them prisoner.
Of course. That's just the law.
So they take Flynn to an elder, and apparently they just speak in Portuguese. So he just talks with them, like, okay, yeah. He says something in Portuguese about a library. It's the only word I recognized. And suddenly they're like, okay, cool. Have a hut. Join us. You know, they're like, oh, super friendly. It's almost like the Ewok village with C-3PO.
Do they speak Portuguese amongst themselves, or do they speak Portuguese just to him?
Both, I guess. I don't know. I don't speak Portuguese, and I don't know what they're speaking.
I'm just curious. I don't know how many native tribes speak Portuguese versus whatever their own language is.
I don't know, but I think they're just speaking Portuguese. At least that's the implication.
Okay.
Again, the crowd just accepts them in, and they have a little feast, and they show them the mating dance, which is this is very special. This is very private. Not many people get to see this kind of thing. And I'm like, why? Why are you letting these random people into your tribe you just met? You just took from prison. Like, oh, they speak Portuguese, and he mentioned a library. You're friends now.
They have good vibes, Sam.
Yes. So later they're given a little cabin, and Flynn tries to do a mating dance to seduce Nicole, kind of as a joke. They're clearly just joking around and having fun. She's kind of into it. She's like, no, go sleep over there against the wall, and he does. But seriously, he's trying very hard, and she's keep telling him no. Take no for an answer, Flynn.
She did learn from the first time that she's supposed to not fall in love with Georges.
She does not. No.
Oh, Nicole.
The next morning, Flynn is hanging out with some kids as Nicole bursts out looking for him. Oh, she's with some kids. And then the snake people just walk into the village, just walk around a corner. Hey, we're here.
That's crazy.
So, good job guarding. Oh, yeah, they're there. And the village is like, oh, hi guys. And everyone's just sort of cool with them just being there.
They seem familiar with them, or they just are like, whatever, more random
whatever.
strangers.
It's all very they don't care. Apparently also the snake crew, they hired a native guy to get them through the best tracker in the Amazon. And he's never brought up again.
Really? Usually they play some kind of pivotal role.
Nope. He found them at the village, and that's the extent of his abilities.
How odd.
So Flynn and Nicole skedaddle. They're being chased by the Snake Brigade, and they get trapped on the edge of a cliff. But then Nicole grabs Flynn, and they jump off the cliff into the river below, and they're fine.
How far is the jump?
I don't know, 40 feet, 50 feet.
Crazy.
So it's about Olympic. It's a little higher than Olympic-sized diving.
Good thing the lake, stream was high enough.
I don't know. They do it, I guess, because they're being chased. And the bad guys, they all stop at the edge of the cliff. And the evil girl's like, wow, the librarian is incredible. Instead of, going after them or jumping after them so they know it can be done.
Why would you jump after them?
Why would you? Because obviously they did it just fine. There they are floating in the river, so you can do it too.
It seems like pure luck.
Or maybe just find another way down. Just stand there and watch.
Oh, sure. I would find another way down.
Anyway, Flynn and Nicole, they swim down river until the sun ends, quote unquote, which is one of the clues in the book. I don't know how you're supposed to figure out what the sun ending means, but here we are.
So they conveniently jumped off of a cliff and then end up where the clue is?
Yeah, they end up in the river. That's part of the clue. I mean, they were almost there anyway because they were hiking in that direction, but...
That was convenient.
Yeah, very convenient. And also, I can't imagine that the book isn't ruined by just being in his, messenger bag in the river while they're swimming down the river for hours.
It's a magic book, Sam,
no.
And also probably a magic bag.
Okay, sure. Well, anyway, they hike back through the jungle and they find a hidden Mayan temple, and the door is guarded by a combination lock. The answer is that riddle Flynn had about the bird to become a bird again.
Is this a modern day combination lock?
No, it's it's an ancient stone combination lock.
Okay, that was very confusing to me.
Sorry. Anyway, this brief impediment is actually not a problem because Flynn immediately comes up with the answer. He's like, oh, I get it. It's stars because the Mayans called stars birds. So the answer is how long it takes the stars to orbit the entire galaxy to make a one galactic orbit. And
Got it.
What? That's a lot of conclusions to jump to.
So the clue that was supposed to be the hard one was eventually not hard at all.
No, there was no problem without solving it. And he managed to jump to the correct conclusion immediately, even though the conclusion is extremely esoteric.
Perfect. I knew he was the man for the job.
Right. So he puts in the combination, which is 27,000 years, and the door doesn't open, but a trap door opens and they fall into a pit room. So there's a pit. They're on one side of the room on a little ledge, and across the pit of spikes is the door to get out.
So it's a trap door, but it doesn't kill them. It just puts them in a room with spikes.
Yes, because this is a testing room.
Oh, of course.
And it's called a Mayan death chamber. And if they can solve the secret of the room, they can get out. It's an escape room.
It's a 2004 escape room.
Yes, exactly what it is. So, of course, the wall starts moving towards them, trying to push them into the pit. And Flynn does some BS about, the temple was this big by that big, which means that the priests had their safe space over here, or some nonsense. He's like, the safe place is right there. And he points to the middle of the pit. And he's like, do you trust me, Nicole? He's like, whatever. And they jump into the middle of the pit, but they land on something hard because it was just an illusion, just like the Last Crusade. But in this case, it was created by using mirrors. Mirrors made it look like the pit was bigger than it was, which, what? I didn't know that the Mayans had the technology to make amazing, perfectly reflective, flat mirrors that were large. Also, how are those mirrors still clean after centuries in a dusty room? Those mirrors are magic. It's absolute nonsense.
You're overthinking it, Sam.
Well, that's the premise of this podcast, Danielle.
You thought aliens weren't involved, but maybe they were.
Maybe they made the mirrors. I'll give them that.
That was their sole contribution to the Mayan Empire.
Have some mirrors. And like, okay, cool. We'll put them in a death pit.
I really would love that. They like met aliens, they had a nice little conversation with them, and that was like their going away gift to the Mayans. It was like, here, this cool technology we have on our planet. Mirrors.
It's pretty great. Anyway, they get through the door, and they find themselves in the treasure room, where the second piece of the spear can be seen down the long corridor. And as they walk towards it, Flynn steps on a pressure plate, and arrows start shooting out of the wall. Like,
that seemed a given. Why would you not be looking out for those?
Because Flynn's a dum-dum when he needs to be a dum-dum. But
even Dora the Explorer would have figured that out better.
I was going to say, Danielle, this movie reminds me a lot of that Dora the Explorer movie in the Lost City of...
Great movie.
Yeah, fun movie. I don't know which one is better, but it's fun.
I'm going to say Dora is better, but I haven't seen The Librarian.
That's true. So arrows start just shooting out at a regular rhythm, and there's also like fire arrows shooting out further down, and there's like these two blades swinging back and forth, pitting the pendulum style, and it reminds me a lot of like Galaxy Quest with the chompers.
We say this a lot.
Because it's a cliche for a reason, Danielle. It's everywhere.
I like that one pressure point sets off like 5 different things.
Yeah, they're all just going, and Flynn's like, there's a rhythm. It's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. They're just like swinging back and forth. Like, what is that? And Nicole's like, it's a waltz. We need to dance our way to the treasure.
Did they have, they didn't have waltzes back in Mayan times.
No, they did not. But also, that's your solution. You're not just like, okay, there's a pattern. We can just go through on the right pattern. We have to actually dance and waltz our way there. It's so good. I love that line about we need to dance our way to the treasure.
It keeps you in tempo, Sam.
Yeah, okay. So instead of just like dashing through at the right time, they waltz their way down the room, and it works out just fine because of course it does. She even has to like dip him at the very end.
I was going to say, is there like any dips or spins or something?
Yeah, she has to dip at the very end because a saw blade, like a circular saw blade, shoots out, would have chopped their heads off if she didn't dip them or something. It's all nonsense.
I like it. If I had a room that people had to like get through to get to something, I would make them dance through it too. I'm
sure you would.
I would.
So there's a bunch of falling on the ground as they approach the pedestal with the spear on it, and they admire the treasure for a minute. Flynn's like, wait, don't touch it. It's booby-trapped. So now he finds a booby trap. He couldn't figure out the pressure plate, but this one he's like, oh yeah, it's definitely booby trap. And he picks up a gem and he throws it at the spear to knock it off the pedestal. And then a giant rock crashes to the ground just where they would have been standing if they had picked it up. So yay.
Oh, that was convenient. I'm still on your side. I don't understand why they didn't just leave the spear where it was supposed to be.
Right. If they just left it in this, amazing trap room that no one knew about, and that the clue to figure it out was in this book no one could read that only they had, they should have spent their resources trying to steal the spear back from the evil organization, not making the other spear pieces easier to access.
Yes, that's a very odd choice.
Anyway, they take the spear. Hooray! They got it. So they exit the temple and are immediately held at gunpoint by the evil Slither gang.
Who's hot on their tail, apparently.
Apparently, yeah. They found them somehow. They tracked them to this temple magically.
Which doesn't make any sense because they're in the temple, so how would they ever know they had gone into there?
Yeah, they just say, oh, they're probably in there. We'll just wait for them to come out. And so again, I write here in my notes that if Flynn had never gotten the second piece, the evil people wouldn't have it, so the whole quest is dumb. So anyway, the evil lady goes up to Flynn to take the spear, and she kind of fangirls a bit as she's talking to him.
Okay.
She's like, I really admire your work.
She's got a thing for librarians.
Well, but him specifically, she thinks he's this amazing adventurer because he jumped out of the plane without a parachute, and he jumped into the river, and she's like, oh, he's really good at what he does. Wow, he's really impressive. So she's got a huge crush on him, and it's kind of the best part of the movie.
I want her to be the lead.
I know, she's great.
Lead.
She's much better than Nicole. She's much more interesting than Nicole. Anyway, she takes the spear and it goes back to stand with the bald guy, and they all escort Flynn and Nicole to their camp, and then Edward reveals himself. He's like, surprise, still alive.
What does Nicole say?
Nicole's like, you're still alive? And she's like, I saw you die. He's like, my death was just an elaborate special effect. See? And your tears were perfect.
What a tool.
I know, but also, elaborate special effect? That's your, big reveal for how you faked your death? Don't worry about it. I just, got some corn syrup and dyed it red. That's what we did. And then he says, I knew you'd bring the spear to me, which just proves my whole point. This quest is just helping the evil people more than anything else.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
So I guess his plan was to steal the first piece of the spear to get the librarians to try to get the other pieces. And they'll try to get the other pieces if I do that.
I don't see why that was the logical thing to be doing at all. So I wouldn't have planned on that. No,
it's very dumb, but apparently it worked. But Edward explains he wanted power, and that power is the ultimate aphrodisiac. So this is sexual for him, this whole quest. And that's his only motivation that they get, is that he just likes power and it's an aphrodisiac. That's it.
Okay, so I take back my previous statement that maybe he was good to begin with and turned evil.
Yeah,
And maybe, but like, he's acting like he was kind of a tool all along.
Yeah, no, he was. He like was faking being in love with Nicole the whole time or something. Like,
yeah, that's so sad. Poor Nicole.
so my point is, to go back to my original point, the librarians suck at their hiring process. You need to revamp that.
Yeah, Noah should look into that. He should be
Flynn.
concerned about
Flynn,
his position.
And yeah, you gotta say his character name at least once.
Flynnoa should be very concerned about this.
No, now you're just being a jerk. being difficult.
Just for you, Sam.
And then Edward pulls out a gun, and he's about to kill Nicole, and Flynn goes, "You can't kill her. You need me to find the last piece, and I won't do it without her." And Edward's like, "What? I don't need you. I'm a librarian too, and I already have the book with all the clues in it."
So he has a copy?
He took it from him when they kidnapped him.
Oh, I missed that part.
Right.
Makes
Well,
sense.
I mean, obviously, he like when they
You're right,
brought him
no,
into the
they-
camp, he stole. They took all the good stuff from them. The spear and the
Kind of
book.
forgot he got kidnapped. Thought they were still just talking in front of the temple in my head.
No, they got captured and brought to the camp.
Yep,
and
I got
where
it.
Edward revealed himself. Anyway, and so he's like, "Oh, I've got the book, so, what do I need you for? I'm also a librarian. Don't forget, I have the same kind of training or whatever qualifications as you."
Nobody has the same qualifications as Flynn.
Well, that's true, because apparently Flynn's like, "You can't read it because it's the language of the birds, and only I was able to translate it on the plane over here in 7 hours, so you couldn't possibly figure it out." And I'm like, wait a minute, why couldn't he figure it out? Like, he's a librarian too. He could probably figure it out. He has like the same qualifications enough to be a librarian, but apparently only Flynn is magic enough to learn the language of the birds.
Yeah, that's nonsense.
And at this point, I'm like, this is basically the book from Warriors of Virtue. It's the same book.
The same book.
It is. Only the protagonist can read, and everyone wants what's inside of it.
Unfortunately, they don't have like a 14-year-old kid telling them to pull their lives together.
To like, stop being wimps. But it helped, actually. If a 14-year-old kid was in that room when they were formulating the plan to go after that piece of the spear, I'm like, wait a minute. Why don't we just like sit here and play video games? Better plan.
They need you, Sam.
Ugh. Anyway, Edward's like, "Fine, I agree to the terms. Where's the next piece of the spear?" And Flynn's like, "It's at Shangri-La in the Himalayan mountains."
So wait, so the plan is either he helps them out,
Yeah.
or
And then they kill them after he finds the spear, presumably. Or he kills them now and he just goes through the book himself.
So basically he's just buying himself more time to potentially get out of the situation.
Right. If I was Edward, I would not go in with this. I'd be like, "I'm shooting you. I'm going to figure it out myself. I've already got 2 pieces of the spear, right?" Remember, even 1 piece was enough for Hitler to cause all kinds of problems.
Right.
So having 2 pieces is probably pretty good.
And you theoretically can learn the language because you have the same skill set as a
And
previous
especially if you have
librarian.
like infinite time and 2 parts of the most powerful artifact, you have twice as much power as you had when you stole the first piece of the spear. Like, you're already ahead. Don't risk it. Kill Flynn. Be done with it.
This is a dumb bad guy plan.
Dumb bad guy plan. Dumb good guy plan. Every plan in this movie is dumb. All right, so Nicole's like, "What are you doing? Don't tell him that." And Flynn's like, "Just trust me, I got this. He's still going to need me to interpret the clues." And like, all right. So they get on a helicopter and they fly to the Himalayas, I guess, from the Amazon. We don't see that. They just appear magically in Asia.
They winked it out of existence.
Probably. They're on a helicopter, and this is great. The evil girl is sitting next to Flynn, and she's just like really grinning at him, like, yeah, like looking at him like, with gaga eyes. It's really funny. And Flynn's just kind of like looking at her a little weird, because then he looks over at Nicole, who's sitting next to him, like, I don't know. It's probably my favorite part of the movie, her being so into him, and him just being like, okay.
I'm really rooting for those two.
Don't.
I can root for whoever I want in our sort of love triangle.
Fair. So the helicopters land at a base camp that's already set up somehow. They hike up this snowy mountain. Flynn is leading the whole party through a blizzard. He slips and falls, but is saved by Nicole immediately for some reason. It's kind of pointless. It doesn't actually do anything but make the movie a little longer.
So they get to base camp. It's already set up. Did they like call their Himalayan friend to be like, "Hey, could you set up a base camp for us?"
I guess so. I guess the snake crew has a huge tentacles or
Oh, of course. I forgot.
fangs all around the world or something. I don't know.
They just called their local friend there and they're like, "Hey, we're coming in. Could you please set that up?"
Hey, Snake Local 357, can you set up a base camp for us?
We'll be there in approximately 0.02 seconds.
Because, we have magic helicopters that can fly you from the Amazon to Asia in less than a day.
Perfect. All right.
So Edward is frustrated they haven't gotten anywhere yet. He pulls out a gun and is like, I'm just going to kill you now. I'm like, well, okay, maybe you could have done that earlier.
What a waste of time and energy.
Yeah. But luckily, the blizzard clears up that very moment, and they look through this little crevice in the rock, and there's Shangri-La. Perfect.
Oh, good.
Guess how many clues they had to interpret to find Shangri-La?
None.
Or they do like a montage. Like, we never see, he just like, he looks at the book down, like, oh, and points like that way. And that's all they do. Like, there's no actual like detective work on the screen.
Well, I'm sure in his head he was like, well, I see a swallow that's only seen in the...
Oh, when a bird becomes a bird for a third time.
A lot of birds in this movie.
Apparently. So they go into Shangri-La and they find this, lush oasis, and there's a Buddhist temple full of monks who welcome them in English and are like, it was long prophesied you would come. How much do you think we learned about that prophecy, Danielle?
I'm going to say everything. We learned everything about this prophecy.
Oh, Danielle, I'm sorry. That's the wrong answer. This is the extent about what we learned about this prophecy. I don't even know why they mentioned it. There's no point to the prophecy.
Oh, you are the one from the prophecy we are not going to tell you about.
Yeah, you're from the prophecy. You're here. We all speak English because the prophecy told us to speak English.
It probably did. It said, and by the way, the person will be English speaking. Please learn that in the next 6,000 years.
In the mystical land of Shangri-La. Anyway, Edward and his goons, they demand the spear at gunpoint, and the monk's like, all right, come on in. And they go into the temple, and they lead him to this giant Buddha statue. And apparently the spear is inside of that, but they're like, we didn't know how to get inside of that. We're just the guardians. We don't know how to access it. So it's up to Flynn. And he's like, reading through the book, is how do I get in there? And he's like, the statue can only be opened by the name of God. Uh-oh, no one knows that name. It's the biggest secret in the universe.
Isn't that the same thing from the other, or similar? Different names for Jesus?
You mean Jehovah? From The Last Crusade, like, in the Latin alphabet, Jehovah starts with an I.
Yeah. It's literally a riff on that.
Yeah, no, this movie cribs so hard of Indiana Jones. Like, everything in it is like a knockoff. It's great.
That makes me happy.
And so Edward's like, you gotta figure out, like, and Flynn's like, I don't know the name of God. Who knows the name of God? No one knows the name of God.
It's Norman.
Norman?
I don't know. It's the first name that came to mind.
Well, you're going to be delighted by this answer. But Flynn, he sees some writing on the belly of the Buddha, and it's in, I don't know what, like, alphabet Buddhist monks use for their language, for their language. I don't know that. I'm sorry. I don't know that. But it's not the Latin alphabet. But that's important because Flynn smiles and goes, M-E, and pushes two of the letters, which are not M or E, because again, they're in a different language and a different alphabet, and the statue opens up.
So, me?
Me. He's like, the answer was me, because God is within us all.
I'm calling shenanigans on that.
There's so much that's wrong with this. One, why would this other language use the same two letters for me as English? Right? Two, why would there be a one-to-one, like, translation of the letter M to their language letter, whatever it is?
Yeah, that's unlikely.
I don't know, because I'm sorry, I don't know alphabets. I'm not a linguist, but it's not, it's definitely like a completely different alphabet. And it's like, oh yeah, that's the M and that's the E, and that's how they say me in their language, which is me in our language, and that's how you, the name of God. I'm like, no, you are full of it, movie. This is worse than him just figuring out that, oh yeah, the stars go around the galaxy. That's what a bird is.
Or maybe he's saying that he is God, Sam.
That's my first thought, was like, I'm God because I am the librarian who has the most knowledge. Whoever has the most knowledge, the most powerful person on the earth. But like, apparently it was much more schlocky than that.
But much less egotistical.
Yeah, well, you're not as egotistical as I am. So the Buddhist, his stomach opens up and there's the spear, and Edward's about to take it, and he's like, wait a minute, Flynn, you take it. I don't trust this. So Flynn reaches in, he grabs a spear, and he gives it to Edward, and nothing happens. And then as they're walking away, the statue starts to like rumble and collapse. And so Nicole uses that distraction to kick some butt, and she takes the spear and the book, and they run out, and as they're about to steal a helicopter that was brought into Shangri-La, because apparently you can bring helicopters to Shangri-La. I don't know how that works. One of the monks yells at them, guard it well. The spear opens a door that must be kept closed.
Does it turn out that Nicole is actually evil?
We'll get to that, Danielle.
Does she? Is she really?
We'll get to that. Don't worry. But then my question is, again, that one parting shot about how guard the spear well because open door that must be kept closed. A, what? That was never part of the spear's mythology up to this point. It was just supposed to give the person who wielded it unbelievable power.
Well, apparently one of the powers is opening up a portal that nobody else knows exists.
But then again, if the whole purpose is not to bring the spear pieces together because they'll open up a terrible door, going to Shangri-La and getting the third spear piece just makes that more likely. Like, no, you're doing this wrong,
Stop
guys.
getting the spear pieces.
Right. Stop assembling the key to the evil door, if there is one, that's helping the bad guy. Like, they would never have found Shangri-La without you. They would never have opened the Buddha statue without you. Like, none of this would have happened if you hadn't helped them. It's so dumb. Also, do you want to know what that portal is, Danielle?
Yes.
So would I.
Does it never get into it?
It never mentions it again. Nothing ever comes of it.
That seems like a big default to not bring back into the plot.
Nope. The spear opens a door that must be kept closed. We'll never worry about that door. Nothing ever opens. Nothing ever comes through a door. Nothing's like, oh, we have to close it before the evil thing comes in. Nope. None of that happens.
Oh, that's an interesting choice.
So this whole line is pointless. Anyway, I just love that.
Maybe it was like accidentally left in from another plot line that they ended up cutting out.
Yeah, or like some rewrite, who knows?
And then once it was like published out in the world, they were like, oh, dang it. Now it's just weird.
I feel like that's something I would do. Like, I feel like I do that probably with this podcast. We put out an edit. I'm like, oh no, I left that in there. So I empathize with that. So they steal a helicopter and Flynn flies it based on theory alone, which BS, because... No.
Especially helicopters, of all things.
I know. And like a military helicopter. This is not like just your simple helicopter.
Yeah, no.
But they fly off to Mongolia, where they land and they get into a hotel room. Like, that's their big plan. They go to Mongolia and pop into a hotel room. Like
the closest city.
Yeah, it's like, hey, let's just go get a hotel and call it a day. We did it. And I'm like, maybe not. Because A, the snake crew still has 2 pieces of the spear, which is more than you have at this point. So they have like more power on balance.
But he has access to all the other tools in the library if he ever gets home.
Sure, but like the whole point was to get the piece of the spear away from the snake people, and they already have 2 pieces, which again, the very thing that Judson said was even 1 piece is incredibly dangerous.
Right. I get it.
So it's like you haven't won yet. You've just like made sure they don't become all powerful. They're still very powerful. But Bobby appears on the TV to Flynn, and he's like, oh, look, I got the spear. And Bobby's like, oh, yeah, great job.
Is Bobby evil?
No, we'll get to that. And he's like, yo, you might want to get that door. And then there's a knock on the door and he disappears off the TV. And in comes a butler with champagne. And Flynn's like, I didn't order any champagne. And that's when the bathroom door opens and Nicole pops out in a robe, still wet from the shower, and goes, but I did.
And she drugs him.
So Nicole is just suddenly all into him. Like, she is so ready to bone down with Flynn after, like, A, not learning anything about her previous relationship with the librarian, how that turned out, and B, being totally disinterested in him the entire time thus far.
Does she drug him?
And what she says is, you must have read books on how to make love. And he's like, oh yes, hundreds. And then Flynn's phone rings because apparently his cell phone gets service in Mongolia.
Yeah, it's a magic cell phone, Sam. Bobby explained that earlier.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have listened to Bobby. Oh, Bobby Newhart knows all about cell phone technology. But Nicole answers the phone and says, Flynn's busy, and hangs up.
Ew.
And then they go out like wild monkeys.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we learned the person calling was Flynn's mother, who's like, a woman answered his phone. She like jumps up and down with her friends who's having lunch with or whatever. Like, oh, a woman answered his phone. Bye. He's with a woman. So that's cute.
It's cute because he's not getting kidnapped or apparently drugged by the champagne.
We'll get to that because later in the post-coital coma, Flynn wakes up alone in the room and he quickly sees that the spear is gone. Flynn runs downstairs wrapped in a sheet because apparently putting on pants would take too long. He starts asking everybody, like, have you seen the beautiful woman I was with? And nobody does. And then Bobby appears on the TV in the lobby and Flynn says, so like either the Snaky Boys got Nicole or she was in cahoots with them all along.
In cahoots. In cahoots.
And he and Bobby are just discussing this out loud in the middle of the lobby. Like, secrecy much, guys?
Nobody's gonna believe there's an entire, like, museum building full of secret artifacts.
Well, they're gonna believe that, like, a magic guy appeared on the TV and had a conversation with an American. But Bobby was like, we still have a chance, since it'll take a great energy to repair the spear. And he names some number on some imaginary scale, probably, or a scale I'm not familiar with. And Flynn's like, oh, the only energy source that was great enough for that was when the Great Pyramids, when they had the full moon was at the peak full moon, and they had their capstone on, just when that amount of energy was generated or something. Like, what?
Oh,
what?
good. Well, at least they have a little 1/20th of a scale model.
How convenient you remember that, Danielle, because, oh no, they just made a replica of the pyramid with the capstone explicitly at the beginning of the movie in the museum.
Hurrah!
And I have a lot of questions about this.
Really shocking.
I mean, do you have questions, Danielle? Because I do.
I have many questions, but go ahead, Sam.
My question is, for one, what? The pyramids are energy generating machines now for some reason?
So this only works during the full moon?
The height of the full moon, like the fullest full moon. I don't know what that means.
And is that conveniently like tomorrow or something?
It is absolutely tomorrow, Danielle.
And no movie ever is it like 3.5 weeks away.
Yeah, we got time. Or like, oh, it's just yesterday. We're good.
Like, dang it, we just missed it.
Yeah, the peak full moon is, whatever that was, it's conveniently tomorrow night. But my other question is, how could a 1/20th replica generate the same energy as the original giant pyramids of Giza?
Yeah, I don't think it would.
This is all BS. It's absolute nonsense. But Flynn's like, get the Marines. We got to go there right now. I'm heading back. I'm coming home. And then presumably just charters a plane back to wherever.
So they get the Marines, like the government Marines?
That's what he says. Because
Are they
Flynn
like
still
involved in this the secret society?
No, not at all.
Okay. You just call like 1-800-Marines and you're like, hey, I'm a librarian for this
I think
place.
Flynn is more like, get some backup. We're going to need help.
Can I talk to who's ever in charge of the Marines?
The president, Danielle. It's the president. You should know that.
I don't. In fact, I would be useless with this task if somebody told me to do it.
It's commander-in-chief, Danielle. He leads the armed forces. Come on.
But I wouldn't go to him. I would go to like whoever's like beneath him.
The Secretary of Defense?
I don't know. Like whoever's in charge of I don't know, Sam.
The Secretary of Defense, Danielle. How do you know so little about our government?
No, it's not that. It's that I wouldn't start there. I would end up like, okay, like what's the manager? And then you go above the manager. And you work your way up. Because you're just calling it random.
1-800 Pentagon, like, let me speak to the lowest level Marine. Oh, Sergeant, can you put me in charge with some lieutenant? Can you
I'm just saying you could call the Secretary of Defense, but like, you're not going to get through.
You think you can get through to anyone else? You're like, oh yeah, we'll definitely let them know. Bye.
No, that's why I was confused about how you ever got a hold of the Marines.
Flynn, he's not thinking. He just made a flippant remark, all right? He's like, get some help. We're going in, is what he meant. Yeah, but we cut to the next night. Flynn shows up at the museum, and then Bobby shows up. He's like, hey, where are the Marines? And then Bobby pulls down his shirt to reveal a tattoo. The Marine tattoo is like Semper Fi. I'm like, all right. That's
He's the
funny.
Marine.
He is the Marine. He's like, I brought the Marine. I'm here. And apparently also Bobby was a librarian at 1.2.
Ooh, now he's in charge of the librarians.
Well, he's like, apparently they age out pretty quickly or whatever, so.
Like an Olympian who's now a coach.
Yeah, pretty much. Exactly that. So he's like, don't worry, I can definitely help. And Flynn's like, all right.
But now he's like a magical librarian?
Because he magics through walls? I don't know, Danielle.
Oh, I have questions.
Those powers never come up again.
Does he once you age out of being a librarian, do you like go to a higher plane?
Is it like Nirvana kind of thing he's talking about?
How does he end up with magic
He's
powers?
Like a 4th level wizard, and Flynn is a 2nd level wizard. It's like,
I'm serious. How does it work?
Who knows? Maybe the other movies or the TV show elaborate on the structure of the librarian hierarchy.
Yeah, I have some real questions.
It's a good question, Danielle. I wish I had answers for them, but just to know that he was a librarian, so was Edward. There are 3 librarians in this movie, Danielle, called the Librarian.
We do, but 2 of them seem to be just normal humans, and then one seems to have magical teleportation powers.
Or he's using some artifact that grants him those powers. Who knows? I
would assume so.
Absolute BS. It doesn't actually bring anything to help. He doesn't bring any artifacts to help out in this all-important quest.
He also seems to live in the library, or of the library.
Absolutely, probably.
That seems concerning. Maybe when they said that this is the only job you're going to have for the rest of your life, they were dead serious about that.
I think he was not joking.
You're going to live in this library forever.
One of us.
They're actually a cult, Sam. That's how this movie turns out in the end.
They're dumb enough to be a cult with how their plans work out.
Oh, goodness.
So anyway, Flynn and Bobby, they break into the museum, and Flynn finds his ex-professor is there with the Hiss gang, and he's like, oh, he's in on it. He's one of them. I'm like, all right, that's convenient. Which is probably why the pyramid was built, to help facilitate the snake plan.
I'd assume.
Nicole is also there, but she is captive. So apparently she wasn't in cahoots.
Are we sure it's not like a ploy? She's actually in cahoots pretending to be captive?
That would make more sense, Danielle, because I have a lot of questions about her not being in cahoots. Because A, how did they kidnap her and steal the spear out of that room with Flynn in it and just leave Flynn alone? Like, why didn't they kill him or capture him too?
And he didn't wake up for any of that? She didn't make any noise?
Didn't wake up. Like, or did she, like, take the spear for a walk? You're like, oh, take the spear for a walk. Take her on and, like, nabbed her out while she's out and about? Like...
It's like,
that doesn't make any sense.
It's bored. I'm going to take it out for a little bit.
Yeah, it has to like relieve itself on the lawn or something. I don't understand how the snake crew, they bring it to the hotel room, they kidnap, I mean, presumably that's how they had to do it, because Nicole was all about never letting the librarian out of her sight because she's the bodyguard.
Right, so it seems weird that she would have ever left the hotel room in any
Exactly,
point
that
for
would
anything.
never happen. So, and of course, they were both in a post-coital state, so I don't think she was like, I'm going to take a little walk.
Maybe she answered the door. Maybe somebody knocked.
Yeah, but then they had to go in and find the spear hidden under the bed. So they had to get into the hotel room,
yeah, you would
capture
think,
Nicole,
since
get
she's
the
a
spear,
bodyguard,
like,
you think she would have made more noise?
Yeah, she would have probably fought or something.
Maybe they blow darted her.
Fine, but then if they were in the room, they see Flynn lying, asleep on the bed, kill him. Be done with it. Why leave him just like, oh, I'm sure it'll be fine if we just leave Flynn alone. The only person with the knowledge and skills to foil our plan.
It's so they could have more movies, Sam.
I know that, but again, dumb plan. Danielle, dumb plan. They should have won. Even with the dumb snake plan, they should have won. So anyway, this is great. There's a small group, and it looks like a very small group. They clearly didn't hire that many extras of snake crew people are standing in front of the pyramid as Edward lifts up the spear and is like, calls down the ancient god's power, and a big beam of light comes from the moon onto the pyramid and bathes the pyramid in a really made for TV quality special effect in blue light. And the small group of people go, snake, 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 snake. And I'm like, what? And then just do it twice, that's it. It's so good. So
even if he got only 1/20th of the power of the 3 spears, it'd probably still be quite a lot of power, right?
I mean, sure, but like, that's my point. It's like, it wasn't that they needed 1/20th of the power. It's like to reforge the spear, since it took so much energy to break it apart, you needed that much energy to put it back together.
Yeah.
So having 1/20th isn't going to reassemble the spear, is my point.
Duct tape, Sam.
Well, then there's unlimited power in duct tape. We know that. All right, it's the chant, snake, 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 snake.
It's so dumb.
It's great. So Edward, the evil girl, the bald hench guy, and Nicole all go inside the pyramid, where Edward uses a column of light, like from the moon, is hitting the capstone of the pyramid and projecting a column of light into the pyramid chamber, because that's how that works.
Is there like a hole in the ceiling?
There's like a glass skylight. It's like in the middle of like an atrium
That's
kind of thing.
Convenient.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what the evil professor built it there for a reason, Danielle.
How hilarious would it have been to have built it and then realized belatedly that you put it in a room with a roof?
That would be really good.
It.
I mean, these guys are pretty dumb. I wouldn't put it past them. She's using a column of lightning, throws the spear chunks, they float in the column of lightning, they reassemble, the spear is remade. Meanwhile, Bob and Flynn, they sneak around to get in the pyramid, but we cut back to Edward, who has the spear assembled, and once he has it, he just stabs his bald henchman, just stabs him right in the stomach.
Why?
And kills him because he has
power. You need
power
a blood
over...
sacrifice?
Nope, just for fun. He's like, now he has power over life and death or something.
What? No.
and the henchman's soul is like sucked out and up along the spear into Edward. And they're both surprised by this.
Okay.
And then he like spins the guy around to the end of the pole into the column of light where he is like disintegrated by the moonlight.
Like the body is?
Yeah. Like, well, he's still alive, kind of. Just soul's just been sucked out. And then he's like screaming, like, ah! And he like dies in the moonlight.
Okay. And so he now has Edward's soul in his body?
No, Edward has the hench guy's soul.
Sorry, that's what I meant.
Edward
has
so.
The henchman's soul in his body? Does it
I guess. I have
inherently change him in any way?
No.
Does he just collect souls, like little tokens in his body?
He just has it. It doesn't seem to affect him in any way.
Does it give him more energy, life force, longer?
Nope, none of that seems relevant. Nothing happens. It just happened.
I don't understand.
There's no door that opened either, just to bring that back around.
I didn't even remember that part.
So then he turns the spear on Nicole. He's like, at last, now we will become one. And I'm like, wait, what? And he's about to stab her. But yeah, Flynn dive tackles him and sort of tackles him outside the pyramid. And then they're immediately surrounded by more snake jerks. However, that's when Bobby Newhart shows up, just kicking all the butt. He just like goes kung fu fighter on them and like lays out all the hench people. And he kicks ass and he tells Flynn and Nicole to get the spear from Edward because Edward like threw him out of the pyramid.
So does he get some kind of like, you're not going to know the answer to this question.
Nope.
Does he get, so like when he's talking about Nicole becoming one or whatever, does he get
means
some
he's
kind
gonna
of like
stab her and steal her soul.
soul, right? But like, never mind, it doesn't matter.
I mean, I have no explanation for what happens when he gets her soul. Does he gain any like insight from them? Is it like they're still alive inside his body too? I have no answers to any of these questions.
Okay, then I will not ask them.
And I'll tell you that the movie doesn't care either. He says that one line and it immediately forgets that the spear does soul stealing. Like, I thought the whole point of the spear was to give someone the power to like conquer nations, right? Lead armies, that kind of thing. But now it's like, oh, it opens a magic door, but actually it doesn't. Oh, it steals soul, but it doesn't do anything with them.
It just does everything, Sam.
It's like a Swiss Army knife.
All-purpose soul. Sketcher, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just saying words now. I don't know.
It's crazy.
Oh, all-purpose spear.
All-purpose spear. It slices, it dices, it steals souls, it opens doors. It conquers nations.
Now for only $19.99.
All you need is a peak full moon and a pyramid with a capstone. Doesn't matter what kind of pyramid, just any pyramid will do. So Flynn turns to go back into the pyramid to pursue Edward, and the evil girl confronts him as he's about to go inside and is like, you know, he doesn't have to be this way. We're going to rule the world. You could join us.
Isn't she not concerned that he just stabbed the bald guy?
Not really. She's like,
she's next. Okay.
She was in there when it happened, standing right next to him, didn't seem to care.
Deeply concerning. I worry about her.
She's like, you can join us. It'd be cool. Like, you're kind of cute, that kind of thing. And that's when Nicole pops up like, get your own man or get your own nerd or something. That's what she says. And then the two hot girls fight because, you know, movies.
Some kind of law.
Yeah, exactly. Nicole wins. I'm not going to say any more about it because it's not a very interesting fight. So meanwhile, Flynn goes inside and fights Edward, who's like, you know, chasing him around inside with the spear and like taking chunks out of the walls as he's stabbing at him. And just as Edward's about to land a killing blow, the pyramid starts to shake and collapse because, remember, Danielle, if even one stone is an inch out of alignment, the whole pyramid will come down.
Even though we didn't believe that to begin with, so that it's a plot point is stupid.
It's stupid. It's absolutely not true. Like, pyramids do not work that way. The whole point is they're strong. But it starts collapsing, and Flynn suddenly is like, he says that thing from his mom about it's not what's up here, and he punches him in the head. It's about what's in here, and pushes him in the chest. As he pushes him, Edward falls down, and the capstone falls out of the center of the pyramid and just crushes him, like flattens him like a pancake.
So this doesn't, like, give him immortality or something?
Dead. Crushed by pyramid.
What kind of crazy spear is this?
Well, and the spear, of its own volition, flies out of the hand of Edward as he's crushed and flies over into Flynn's hand to be caught.
So you couldn't remember his name either. You wanted to call him Noah.
No, I wanted to say something about like the spear being smart, and that's dumb.
Don't lie, Sam.
I'm not. Why does the spear like suddenly have the ability to fly around like Excalibur? Like, why does all magic objects in this movie fly around?
They all have personalities, apparently.
It's so dumb. Yay, Edward has the spear. Edward exits the pyramid to find Nicole and Bob and a bunch of bodies. I don't know if they killed everyone or just defeated them in hand-to-hand combat, but yay, they win. They all share a moment, and we cut to the spear being returned to the library. The whole spear. So the whole, like, it's too powerful to be kept in one piece thing, it doesn't matter anymore. We can just put the whole spear in the library, which was stolen from before, by the way. Like, the first place it was stolen from was the library. The other parts were safe in Shangri-La and the Mayan temple, but let's put the whole spear in the library. Because
do they address the issues with their security system?
Well, Edward's dead, so I guess they're like, well, the guy who knew us inside and out is dead, so we're probably fine. It's so
wild.
Dumb. The spear, they should have broken the spear back apart and put in this, the whole quest was nonsense from the very beginning. The whole reason the spear was broken into 3 pieces, clearly nonsense.
So the spear flying into Flanoa's hands,
Nope.
Is it supposed to, like, warrant that he's give him some kind of credence as the leader?
I think it just saves him from him to walk over and pick it up. Is the honest answer.
I didn't want that in their TV
That's
show.
all that happens is it flies his hand and they put it in the case and like, all right, we'll never touch the spear again.
I'm deeply concerned about this library.
It's not well run. All right. And then Flynn takes a moment alone. He goes up to Excalibur and he pulls it from the stone. He is worthy. Yay. And this time it doesn't fly out of the stone to his hand or something. He pulls it. I guess they can't always fly.
Bob's not evil?
Nope. Bob's totally cool. He's just a badass. Neither is Nicole. Nicole wasn't evil either. She was just incompetent, I guess, and got captured.
She's the worst guard I've ever seen.
Why? I'm still upset that the Snake Clan didn't just murder Flynn in the hotel room when they clearly had the opportunity.
Why even kidnap her?
Right. Just kill them both, take the spear, job's a good one.
What was the point of kidnapping her? I didn't even think about that in the moment, but I thought it was going to play out, but it didn't play out. Why kidnap her?
I think Edward just is horny for her.
Yeah, it's creepy.
And it was like the whole thing, like stab her and become one or something. I don't know. It's like they have a whole bunch of like notions about, well, we want to make it like this, and if we want to make it like a doorway, like in Ghostbusters, or what do we want to do like that? And like none of those ideas actually happen, but they put all of this setup in the movie, but none of the capitalization on that, none of the resolution.
I wonder if any of the sequels deal with any of this stuff.
I doubt it. They're all about different things, like King Solomon's Mines and other stuff.
Interesting. What an odd... It sounds fun.
Look, the movie is fun. It's breezy. It's light. It's pretty funny. There's a lot of good chemistry because the actors are all pretty charming. But the plot is just the most utter nonsense I've ever heard. Like, it's not even as coherent as the Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Ark, it melts Nazi faces or whatever. Like, it doesn't make even that much sense. It's so, like, slapdash. It's clearly just trying to make excuses to get the characters into a situation where they can quip or, like, do cool fights.
I mean, I'm here for that. So
it's good, but there's a lot of quips. Like it's not like it's an hour and 40 minutes or whatever. So it's not like it's like a 80-minute quick movie that just like breezes by. There's a lot in there. Anyway, I just find it weird that they spent so much effort on the writing of a lot of these plot points and the mythology in like the first 20 minutes of the movie, and none of it matters. None
of it matters at all. Well, we'll have to see where Noah goes. Maybe you'll do the Librarian 2, search for more libraries.
There's Librarian 2. I forget what it's called. That might be the Return to King Solomon's Mines. Or maybe
Are you sure it's not the search for more libraries?
It's definitely not.
Librarian 3, the search for more money?
No, that was a Spaceballs joke.
It can be in the Librarian too.
Sure. Anyway, Bobby and Charlene, they lead Flynn to the portrait hall.
Oh, we weren't done? I'm sorry.
No, we're not even close to done.
I thought that was the end of the movie. I was like, check it out.
No, this movie has like 7 endings. So Bobby and Charlene, they lead Flynn to the portrait hall and unveil his librarian portrait with him holding the spear. Yay.
Yay.
Cross dissolve. 3 months later, he's having lunch with his mother. And she's like talking to a group of girls sitting at a table next to them. Like, hey, this is my son. You all be really great. He's a really good guy. She's still trying to hook him up or something.
It's like your number one fan.
And he's like, no, Mom, I'm telling you, I'm seeing somebody. And she's like, oh, yes, the mysterious Nicole. How come I never have a chance to meet her? And it's like, it's complicated, Mom. And then suddenly a motorcycle revs and jumps over the barrier into this like outdoor cafe area and revs up to the table. And it's Nicole in a cool black motorcycle outfit with a helmet. She pulls her helmet off and like waves her hair about. Like, oh, it's so nice to meet you. Flynn's told me all about you.
That's quite the meeting.
And then, Flynn gets up and she takes him aside for a moment and she says, Flynn, the Deadly Scorpion League has found H.G. Wells' time machine, and we're the only ones who can get it back. And then I'm like, wait. Okay, this library is getting dumber by the second. One, mystical artifacts. Fine, cool. I get that. Then you have, the Mona Lisa and a unicorn and a jetpack. I'm like, you're getting weird. And now, are all fictional things in this world true too? Like, H.G. Wells wasn't a mystical figure. He wasn't a legendary person. He was just an author who wrote a book about a time machine. Why is his time machine suddenly a real thing?
Was it being stored in the museum library?
I mean, if that's true, then they really didn't make their security any better.
That was my next question, is like, did it get stolen from it?
No, I'm going to say no, because they used the word found, not stolen.
Well, maybe they found it in the library.
Okay. Oh, it was right here behind the nonfiction section.
It's possibilities, Sam. Their security is obviously terrible.
Oh, it's lax as heck. It's basically just one man, Bob Newhart, and maybe Charlene when she's there.
But still, okay, I know that they said he got through on a loophole, but you think that when a librarian turned evil and went to the dark side, that you would patch up those loopholes so they couldn't change the password?
He got through on a loophole? There was no loophole. They just hired him.
No, but I'm talking about when he broke in.
Oh, they don't explain how. He just said, he knows our secrets. They said there was something about a failsafe and he knew about it.
That's what I meant, the failsafe. I just couldn't remember the word. So, they should have fixed that.
My understanding was the failsafe just limited how much time they had. Like, he knew because of the failsafe, they only had enough time to get one item before they had to get out.
How did he get in there?
I don't know, Danielle. It's dumb. They don't explain the security. They have like the missile keys, but apparently anyone who can just like go into the building and like kill the guards and take the keys and get in there, it's not hard.
It just feels like if you're librarian with evil, you would change like your security system so they could never get back in.
You would think that, but they don't. But they all thought he was dead, Danielle, to be fair.
I don't care. That's just like protocol. It's like if you fire somebody, some businesses change their locks.
I agree. But, again, I assume they thought he was dead, so, not really worried about him coming back. But you're right. As soon as they learned he was still alive, that's the time to be like, okay, we gotta change our protocols here.
Yeah, that's wild to me.
Anyway, Deadly Scorpion League, because obvious. Great name. But I'm still upset that, like, why are suddenly fictional things real now? Like, are we gonna find that everything Jules Verne wrote about is suddenly true, too? Because this is just like those Journey to the Center of the Earth movies with The Rock.
Yes, it's true, too.
Oh, yes, of course. I mean, that's my point. Like, this world is making less and less sense. Like, I thought it was just mystical artifacts. Now suddenly everything is on the table. Sorry,
I was still contemplating the idea of the lock system and how Nicole saw what's his
We're back
face
to that. Okay.
I'm sorry. Nicole saw what's his face get murdered by beheaded. And she knew who did it.
Yeah. Crew.
That's when you change your lock system, because you have to assume that even if he died, you'd have to assume that they somehow had information on him.
They interrogated him or something.
Yeah, like you would change your entire security
Yes,
system.
Danielle, the security is very lax.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We all agree on that. I never disagree with that.
I felt like it was a loophole, like, he died, so therefore they didn't do anything about it. I'm like, well, wait a second, they know how he died.
All I'm saying is it's more understandable not to change your lock if you think the person who has all your secrets is dead. I still think it's not good. I'm just saying it's slightly better.
It wasn't like a car accident or something, though. It was like they saw him get murdered by the bad librarians. I would just assume the bad librarians now have intel.
It's possible. I mean, there's like killing the good librarians. I don't know. Like, there's a lot about their interactions with the evil librarian society that they don't talk about.
Okay. Anyway, I'm sorry. Time machines, utter nonsense.
Utter nonsense that every fictional thing is now possibly real. Anyway, Flynn gets on the back of the motorcycle and they jet off. He apologizes to his mom about needing to leave and they drive off into the sunset on the streets of whatever city this is. The end.
This is the real end.
This is the actual ending, yes.
Okay.
I will say the end when it's the end.
I really thought it ended 3 endings ago.
Yeah.
It was like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it kind of was. Exactly like that. So that is The Librarian, a movie about a guy who was barely a librarian because he doesn't do any actual, like, library work. He goes on adventures instead.
Well, that's what the librarian does, Sam.
Yeah, well, I'll have to remember that next time I'm looking at librarian job postings.
Why is it called Are there actual books in there besides like the fancy books?
Yeah, there's like bookshelves, and in the vault there are bookshelves and reading tables and then just cabinets full of curios.
So it's like a library too. It just also has all these antiquities
well,
and stuff
the Metropolitan Library is where the secret base is.
So that's why he's considered a librarian, not just like a, I don't know, curator or something.
Well, that's what I think is, because like apparently they're trying to like trace it back to like all the way back to the, Library of Alexandria, which was the original library before we moved it to the city or whatever. I'm like, but when did libraries start collecting? That's museum stuff, is collecting artifacts, right?
Yeah,
that seems more in their wheelhouse. Like knowledge and books, I get. Like if you had like hidden knowledge, like the book of the bird language, sure, that makes sense. You hang on to the secret book that tells you where all the artifacts are, but hoarding artifacts doesn't seem really your job.
Yeah, that's an interesting choice to be a librarian.
Yeah, well, there it is.
Throws everybody off the scent. Also, evil librarians, way funnier than evil curators.
Yeah, that's a good point. The Splinter Cell librarians is really, I really want to like know more about them. Like,
Maybe in the sequels.
I know they're like bent for world domination, but I want to imagine like, we will arrange the books so they're not in alphabetical order.
I have to assume that's their hobby.
It's just like
maybe that's how they start out when they're like little children evil librarians.
We're going to take the books, make them overdue, and dog-ear the pages, and then not pay the fine. Yes.
I'd like to imagine that's how they find their future, like, people to recruit
for
their evil librarians, is they, like, watch children and see what they do.
That raises a good question, Danielle. How do they ever recruit people for the evil, snake crew if,
how is it any different than the good librarians?
Well, the good librarians, they, like, scour, academic institutions and send out magic letters, and then do a whole interview process. I doubt, like, the hench people are like, hey, are you an academic? Because most of them are just, like, thugs.
Well, maybe they, like, have their ear to the ground and they hear about the people that are like not on the up and up.
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Also, I really am disappointed that the evil lady, whose name is never mentioned, I think, once in the movie, I really wanted her to be like fangirling continuously like over, and then he like somehow she gets involved with the good people and she like hired. They're like, you know what? I've come around. Flynn, you're so hot, you convinced me, or something like that.
Well, she doesn't die, right?
She just gets her butt kicked. She's just gone.
So maybe she's in the sequel, Sam.
Hopefully. Guess who's not in the sequels?
Nicole.
Yeah,
poor Nicole. She was a terrible guardian, so that's fair. She probably got fired and then they didn't change their alert system, security system.
Yeah, I did mention that what happens to her is explained in one of the episodes of the TV show, like we're somewhere in there.
It's like really belated. They're like, oh yeah, I remember that girl from that first movie like 6 years ago.
Yeah, basically. More than that.
She is somewhere else.
Because I think the TV show happened in like 2014, or like 10 years ago.
She is no longer involved with our organization, and we felt the need to explain this 4 seasons into this TV show and 3 movies later.
Or maybe it was the 4th episode of the first season. I don't know. But the point is...
I'd like to assume it's 4th season, Sam.
Well, and the point is, in neither of the 2 sequels is she even brought up, I guess, or mentioned.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so that's The Librarian, The Quest for the Spear.
That's fabulous. You go, Noah Wiley.
It was a movie whose entire plot was unnecessary. If the librarian, if they hadn't hired Noah Wiley, none of this would have happened. Because Edward Wade stole the first piece of the spear, but had no idea where the other parts were, and no one could translate the book. So they would have been safe.
That would have been hilarious. I wonder if he timed it to wait till there was another librarian.
I think maybe they did, because Edward was all about like trying to use them to get the other pieces for himself.
Which is a nonsense plan.
It's every plan in this movie is nonsense. Like if any of the good people just done nothing, and any of the evil people had also just done nothing, it would have been fine. And I want to know what the freaking door the spear opens is.
Yeah, that's wild.
Maybe one of our listeners who is more familiar with the librarian mythos can explain to me, A, why the Mona Lisa's in there, because I'm still upset about that. And B, maybe what the spear does with the whole soul-sucking, door-opening stuff. Because there's clearly something there that I just don't understand.
We could also use somebody, an architect perhaps, to let us know if, in fact, a pyramid would fall down if you moved one stone an inch.
Yeah, a structural engineer, an architect, someone who knows geometry, like basic geometry, could just get in touch with us and tell us, like, maybe pyramids are that precise, but I don't think so, especially on that scale.
But we'd love to hear otherwise. We'd be fine being corrected on that point.
Actually, if you want to, like, send a video of you making a proof about that, like constructing a model pyramid and proving it, or just the mathematics of it, I would love to see that. You can send all that information, all your pyramid-related questions and answers to bookretorts.com.
Or you can tweet at us, Facebook, Instagram us at bookretorts.
And if you're a fan of bonus content and of this podcast and want to support us, you can do that at patreon.com/bookretorts.
Patreon!
Well, until next time, Danielle, just avoid the snake bite, I guess.
I guess. Snake.
Snake. No, they don't do it. They just do it's snake.
Oh, I'm sorry for getting the thing wrong that I didn't
get
hear.
the rhythm right, Danielle. It's not snake. That'd make too much sense. But
sorry, snake.
There you go, and just twice.
Woo! Go snakes.
I kind of want to be part of that group. They say I'm cool. They have like punk rock outfits in the jungle. They're led by a crazy dude. It seems like they have a party going on. It's great. All right. Well, until next time. Bye.
Take care, everybody. You can only be a hippie or a hipster in this town. There's no in between.
Really? So you have to be one or the other? That's close-minded of you.
Well, you've been here.
What would you classify me as, Danielle?
If you could only be a hippie or a hipster, you're a hipster. But you're not in real life.
Problem is, I lack the first part of that word, which is hip.
I'm just saying if those are the only two cultures in this city, then that would be what you'd fall into.
This is another dystopian novel that you could write about. Like, in our town, there are only two categories, and yet birth you're assigned to be either a hipster or a hippie.
But don't worry, since we're writing the novel, the protagonist is neither. Steps outside of the zone.
They have both elements of both. They have the long beard and the love of fish concerts of the hippie, but also the pretentiousness and love of craft beers of the hipster.